I no longer want or need to have sex. Me too. Single till death. What if my dead relatives watching in disgust? She was only hot when I was horny. No, I do not have a crush on that rude girl who looks pretty. I don't want a GF. Wait. Twins can't be stepsisters. Me hungry. I'm a fucking degenerate. I said I would never sink to this level of porn.hub. Pornhub, you filthy casual, Haname is where the true degenerates are born. Go, be free, frolic in the field beyond shame and enjoy the jubilation during your descent elevation into insanity brilliance. Though beware of the lowly tag, that shit is for pedophiles. I only mention this because it is when I lost my decency. I now have gone to levels below hell itself. If you think Haname is bad, you have not experienced My Little Pony fanfiction on yaoi heaven and femboys turning you bi. My true degeneracy was hidden in my original comment. Back when I felt shame. I have seen so much since my days of innocence. Now you will see my true form. I live in every dumpster, every on the side of every back road, under the seats at a theater. I am pure fucking trash. So with living in Germany and prostitution being legal and sort of affordable, roughly €100 per hour, I probably saved up thousands by jerking off. Every time the need arises and I actually think, man, maybe this time I should actually go into a brothel, I crank one out and afterwards just think, good thing I didn't go through with that idea. I've gone too far. And there's no going back. That's it, I've failed as a human. I was working on a short story for English class and I just couldn't come up with an ending. After dumping a fanciful load, I knew how to neatly end the story. Got the only a out of everyone there. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how Bran became king. WTF is wrong with me. WTF is wrong with me. Oof, that one hits hard. I guess I'm really kinky. I'm in a 100-degree Port au John, in a fucking desert, sitting next to my rifle, wearing body armor and a Kevlar helmet. Getting heatstroke to get the dick stroke, because the US Army is fucking me. Besides that 7/10 on TripAdvisor, would combat Jack again. I'm only doing this as a vice because I'm actually just really lonely and want someone in my life. I should really lose some weight. I don't think this is what you meant, but I'm always motivated to start working out again after I come hard. You get some similar after effects, like your body feeling firmer and looking better. Oh, I'm not in love with this girl I just met. Oof. What a panicky feeling to get. A close second as, oh, this girl is abusive towards me. Why did I pay $10 for that video? That I am not actually gay. Did the balls touch? If not, then it was never gay to begin with. I figured out why the motorcycle wouldn't start. Why does my phone say it's connected to my Bluetooth speaker in the living room? Fuck. That I still wasn't over my ex. This one hurts because it hits too close to home. I think I am in love. Married 4 years. Close-ups of buttholes are kinda gross. I've never understood, and have accepted that I will never understand, people's attraction to anuses. It just makes absolutely no sense to me. When half the comments in GW are about a girl's buttholes, dudes asking women to spread their cheeks, etc., I don't understand it. It's a pink circle of crinkly skin that shit comes out of a couple times a day. What is hot about that? I'll never get it. That I should always have my snacks and beverages ready after being completely drained of my energy. Oh yeah, I'm due for an oil change. Why did I just have sex with this chick? I gotta get out of here. I should have used a condom too. Fuck, she better not get pregnant. Or have given me an STD, it's like changing back from a werewolf. I'm in it for a few, that felt like a pregnancy nut. That sex was so good, I felt my balls send out Seaman Team 6 to assassinate Osama bin Laden. I was right, the girl I just nutted to doesn't love me, will never love me, and in most cases will never even know I exist. Also, nobody loves me and now I'm late for work, this will probably be the last time we ever have sex. Why do I keep jerking it in these nasty ass porta potties? As I continue to fap in nasty ass porta potties. Nothing like fighting to stay conscious from heat exposure to bust a nut all while smelling MRE shits. I don't love you anymore. Why don't you love me? Because I'm afraid for my skull's safety. There's a Japanese word for this exact thing, they call it kenjitaimu. It is the period after sex or masturbation allowing you to think clearly. Which propaganda effort was so successful, people still believe it today? That teeth are supposed to be perfectly white. Teeth are supposed to be off-white. Think of teeth like skin. Skin comes in different shades, just like teeth. At least that's what my dentist told me while he was checking my prostate. Many Korean people believe that fans can cause death. Even my mother, who moved to America in her mid-teens, still prohibits me from leaving a fan on overnight for fear of death. There is a conspiracy theory that the South Korean government spread this myth as propaganda to prevent energy overusage, but its origins are unknown. It's strange that many Koreans believe this myth considering it is one of the most technologically advanced countries. Carrots make your vision better. This rumor was started in WW2 to hide the invention of radar. The public was told that Allied pilots found the German bombers during the Blitz because they had good eyesight because they ate their carrots, but in reality it was that the British had an early radar system in place that they did not want the Germans to find out about and bomb. That Napoleon Bonaparte was short. He was 5 feet and 7 inches tall, which might be a little bit on the shorter side by modern standards, but it was around the average height for people back then. The idea that he was short actually came from a British propaganda campaign to mock him. That big curvy line of toothpaste with a Dairy Queen curl we've seen in every toothpaste ad. You don't need more than a pea-sized smear of paste on your brush. Columbus was the only person who believed the world was round. Literally everyone who could read knew that the Earth was round. Nobody thought Columbus would fall off the edge. They thought his crew would starve to death before reaching the East Indies, and he totally would have. Sugar companies paid the media to say that fat made you fat. I mean, all food in extreme amounts will put you on the heavy side, but sugar is the true villain here. Diamonds as a symbol of eternal love. Apparently in the 80s KFC ran a Christmas-themed ad in Japan, and to this day the Japanese eat KFC on Christmas. That if you ask if someone is a cop, if they are a cop, they legally are required to say yes they are. Of course they aren't required to, that defeats the entire purpose of working undercover. When Edward Bernays, the father of public relations, literally renamed propaganda that we want people to think is not bad to public relations and advertising, and he literally admitted it in a book he made called Propaganda. Propaganda is, quite literally, just media that is attempting to persuade you. It might be honest or dishonest, but, no matter what, it is still propaganda. That touching a baby bird will make its mother reject it. Lies. Put the baby back in the nest if you can. That the old woman who sued McDonald's over burning herself with her coffee was just money hungry. For clarity, an elderly woman was a passenger in a car, pulled over in the lot to add sugar after getting a coffee and it spilled all over her lap. It burned her really bad and she just set out to get McDonald's to pay her hospital bills. They served the coffee way too hot. They ended up launching this whole PR campaign where they smeared this poor lady, even taking out spots in local papers over how silly and money-hungry she was. Comedians, musicians, and radio hosts made fun of her and made her out to be money-hungry instead of a victim. Knuckle cracking gives you arthritis. If it did, I would make a living being the overly dramatic old white person in infomercials that can't pick up a bottle. And I'm only 31. The myth that Spartans threw unhealthy babies off mountains, this was Athenian propaganda. That fat is unhealthy, the nutrient that is, not actually being fat. Absinthe makes you hallucinate was propaganda because it was hurting the wine industry. That turning the light on in the back seat of the car is illegal. MSG will kill you and is horrible to ingest. I'm allergic to MSG. Really, it is delicious and your body produces it naturally while breaking down regular salt. Some people do have sodium issues, and it may not be good for them. But that's a tiny micro percentage of people. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day, serving it up Gary's way. People still believe dogs don't see in color, when in fact they do. They see less of it than humans do, but they most definitely see in color. Camels don't store water in their humps. They store fat in their humps. Autism and vaccines. The original guy wanted to advertise his own vaccine but did not disclose this when he published a hit piece on the mainstream vaccine at the time, in a reputable journal. His alternative vaccine failed, his paper was bashed and ultimately retracted, yet people smart enough to work at Google don't vaccinate their kids. The war on drugs. prematurely illegalized drugs we didn't understand and hadn't had the chance to do a lot of research on, psychedelics and weed, mainly, and created a black hole of misinformation and mistrust by the public, as well as removed funding for drugs that now, thanks to private funding, we're realizing can have hugely positive effects when dealing with mental health. That a man should spend 2 months' salary for his future wife's wedding ring, which absolutely must be a diamond. Screw that, I spent a total of $150 for my wife's ring and she fucking loves it, and it's a sapphire. Diamonds are no more precious than any other precious gem, and manufactured gems are way easier to come by, are more perfect, and so much cheaper. As long as it's an actual ruby, sapphire, emerald, etc., it will be just as good as one dug out of the ground. Fake ones are good for a teen gift or just friends kind of gift, but they'll shatter pretty easy compared to the real thing. That you only use 10% of your brain. In reality, you use pretty much all your brain capacity, so neuroscience has proven quite thoroughly. The McDonald's hot coffee smear campaign to hide the lawsuit. Lie detector tests are accurate. They're junk science at best. People, when the inventor of the device and procedures used is on record saying it's crap, we should probably listen. Looking at you, Florida, for allowing LD test results as evidence in court. I am from Germany and some of my grandparents still believe the stuff they were told about Jews by the Nazis. Like when a Jewish person dies on a Christian holiday they get hung behind the door and everyone who comes in has to spit on him. It's some vile stuff. I can't believe how they were spoon-fed with this in their early years. That monosodium glutamate, MSG, is harmful. If such an allergy were ever possible, it has never been proven, you'd literally die, because it means you're either allergic to sodium, or glutamate, which are in almost every single food or drink known to man. That Listerine invented the term, halitosis, for bad breath. They didn't. It predates them by decades. It's just something that sounds nice to say because you get to attack a big corporation. Engagement rings are required for marriage. The lie that nuclear power is terrible. It is worse than renewables, however instead of chucking huge quantities of dangerous waste into the air like a coal power plant, it can all be contained, and 95% can be reprocessed into new fuel. In the 60s and 70s, a lot of oil giants used advertising to link its reputation to the very real danger of nuclear weapons, and if this hadn't have happened, global warming would have been much less of an issue. Very few people realize that coal power actually causes more deaths per megawatt than nuclear power due to nitrous oxide emissions, even when Chernobyl is included in the statistics. Nestle done a smear campaign saying formula feeding is best, they mainly done it in third world countries. Nestle owns majority of formula companies so they got rich and uneducated third world counties suffered as they would rather use this healthier option but made it with dirty water meaning children died, which wasn't needed as most have no issue making breast milk. Breakfast is the most important meal of the day and that cereal, toast, sugary things are part of a balanced breakfast. Know plenty of people who function perfectly without eating anything for breakfast. The Armenian genocide never happened. My Turkish friends still believe this. If you masturbate you will go blind. That a 4-year college education is the only way you'll succeed in life. Drinking fountains are unhealthy. The bottled beverage industry commissioned and publicized a series of studies in the early 1990s when they decided to get into the bottled water business. The problem was that their largest competitor was free and available in schools, parks, and public buildings everywhere. Anyone who took even a semester of biology knows that if you walk around and swab and culture anything, you'll find that it's covered in bacteria. That's ecology on planet Earth. Sort by controversial and grab some popcorn, folks. The idea that fluoridated drinking water was dangerous was started by the USSR. The belief that HIV was created by the US government was also started by the USSR, but that one's not nearly as popular today. Nixon's drug campaign. That fat is the thing to avoid in foods taking away the spotlight from sugar. That diamonds are worth anything. That GMOs are bad. Newsflash, your orange carrots are GMO. Most of the food you eat is GMO. Without it, we couldn't sustain society as it is now. That you need to eat 3 or more large meals per day to be happy and healthy. And that a sugary breakfast is by far the most important part of that day. That dandelions are weeds. I recently discovered that these pretty yellow flowers were reclassified as weeds because of lawn culture and some successful marketing by herbicide companies. Dandelions have been used in food and medicine for centuries. That you're not fully clean until you're zestfully clean. Holy shit, whatever happened to zest? Breakfast is the most important meal of the day. Kellogg marketing campaign. That vaccines do more harm than good. Fairness cream racism in India. People actually believe that beauty lies in the color of the skin. Fairness creams are a billion-dollar industry in India. Corporate anti-workers union propaganda. People actually believe that unionizing would be against their best interests. That Wyoming exists. The word jaywalking, and the propaganda campaign around it, was invented by car companies to create the idea that streets were for cars and people who get hit by them are idiots. It worked smashingly. The Red Scare was extremely effective. That Taco Bell sells grade D meat, or that their ground beef is equivalent to dog food. In the last few years, Taco Bell has quickly become one of the healthiest fast food chains, being one of the first to completely ban artificial ingredients. The comparison to dog food is ridiculous, as most commercial dog foods contain protein meal byproduct composed of the leftover and diseased parts of old, dying animals. In North America at least, bottled water is safer to drink than tap water. That the U.S. was founded as a Christian country. Most of the founding fathers were deists. Just read Thomas Paine's The Age of Reason to see what he thought of Christianity. The First Amendment doesn't exist just for the sake of Christians. What's a normal thing to do at 3 p.m. but a creepy thing to do at 3 a.m.? Dig holes in the backyard. Slowing driving through a suburban neighborhood in an ice cream truck that plays music. Go ask to borrow my neighbor's ladder, or his shovel, and a bag of quicklime. Leave an elementary school. Play in the yard with your child. Drive through a nice neighborhood in a not-so-nice car. Used to work a shift that ended between 2 to 4 a.m. My drive home took me through a pretty nice suburban development and I got pulled over semi-regularly. I started doing DoorDash recently and a few of my early deliveries took me to some extremely expensive gated neighborhoods in Northern Virginia, e.g. a place called Piedmont Riding Club, and I felt highly out of place with my $1,500 2003 Hyundai Tiburon with its foggy headlights and collision damage. One kid walked by me with his dog, looked at me shiftily and was like, "Are you friends with someone?" Knocking at someone's door. Play the organ. Searching for plants, apparently. A biologist from my university was arrested in his own backyard while he was searching for a certain weed. Wave to your neighbors. Have your Google Home or Alexa randomly say, "Sorry, I didn't catch that." Liking a picture of a girl you kinda know through some friends on Facebook. I feel awkward vibes when I wash my car at 3 a.m. Edit, dear stranger, thank you for my first gold, and remember next time you see someone washing their car at 3 a.m. give them a honk, smile and a friendly wave. Chop wood. Visit a cemetery. Meeting with a friend in the park, afternoon looks normal, at 3 a.m. it looks like a drug deal. Fly a kite. There's something about flying a kite at night that's just so unwholesome. If you fixed some LED lights to it, it'd be quite cool. It's just weird if you can't see the kite. Hear a child's laughter. Screaming at spooky games at 3 a.m. Neighbor thought someone was being home invaded. Opened door to police and explained that I had just screamed out of fear playing game. Didn't realize how thin my house walls were. Holy shit, I got 2K upvotes. What happened? Standing still on a city street corner all by yourself under a now lit street lamp. Coming home, covered in dirt, with a shovel. Lightning flashes as you enter the door. Stand outside a friend's house holding balloons. Mowing your lawn. Lay out tanning. Stare out your window into the world beyond your house. Just stand in the window and take it in. Martha, that hollow-eyed man across the street, is standing in his underpants and looking this way again. Call your dad. If you call your mom, she will be concerned. If you call your dad, he will ask what the hell is wrong with you. Push your baby in a stroller through your neighborhood. Skip down the street. Especially as a 6-feet bearded man. Putting a rolled-up carpet in the back of your pickup and driving off. Play the piano passionately. Text a girl you haven't talked to in a while and ask to hang out lol. Eat a Krabby Patty. According to my neighbors, laundry. Motherfucker, I work 12-hour shifts and I gotta clean my clothes. Relaxing on your front porch rocking chair. Apparently grocery shopping. I have mental health issues and I have panic attacks, dissociative spells when there's too many people around and it's too loud. So the middle of the night is pretty much the only time I can do my shopping, but I always get looks. Whistle or sing outside. Take your kids to the park. Browse at a Victoria's Secret store. If you are a cat, sleep. Cat sleeping at 3 p.m., normal, perfectly cat-like. Cat sleeping at 3 a.m., very concerning, non-cat-like behavior. Help people cross the road in your crossing guard, lollipop lady uniform. Stand in the back garden naked and stare at the moon. My wife sleepwalks when she's stressed. So one night she starts sleepwalking and at some point strips off and heads downstairs. She manages to go out into the back garden and is apparently just stood staring at the moon completely naked. The next door neighbors must have seen this, and the next day my wife overhears them talking to their family about how they saw the woman next door stood outside naked staring at the moon. The older man then pipes up and says, "She must be one of those moon nudists." Always makes me laugh. TLDR, neighbors think my wife is a moon nudist. Sing nursery rhymes. Back when my daughter was really young, she had terrible colic. Babies just a few weeks old don't have a concept of night and day, but being walked in a pram was one of the few things that calmed her. My father-in-law got stopped by the police one night. A guy with a big bushy white beard pushing a pram with a screaming baby while singing at 3 a.m. sets off a lot of red flags. Rearrange your furniture. Asking your neighbor for some eggs. I've been told flying my kite late at night is creepy. But if I can't sleep and there's good wind, I'm flying day or night idgaff. Wear sunglasses. Whistling. I whistle a lot, and at a summer camp one whistled softly, "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star," up the stairs. Slowly, I was carrying a lot of instant noodles to my camp room so they could eat, and when I entered the room everyone was just staring. Another thing is entering someone else's room. Slowly push your 5-year-old in a swing, at a park, with the swing that makes the most creaky noise. Flying a kite like Bart Simpson. I love how flying a kite is the most repeated one. Running next door to ask the neighbor for a cup of sugar. Gotta love the power of the people. Have a picnic on college campus, alone. I always feel like a creep taking out a big bag of trash after midnight. Call your crush. Calling a fictional character on the phone for your YouTube channel. Swinging on the swing set. Alone. Look at a tree. Operate a wood chipper. Stand on your dock and reach out to the single green light across the bay. Handing out religious pamphlets door to door. Go on a run around the neighborhood. I feel that if you go around the streets and yell, it's creepier at 3 a.m. At 3 p.m. you just might be a frustrated student, so. IDK. Walk with a red wagon behind you that has a creaky wheel. Go into the attic. Water the grass. Wearing my $800 best business suit. The local police stopped me a couple of weeks ago. Wanted to know my business, and asked to look into my briefcase. It had my mobile phone, iPad, notebook, pens and 4 chicken salad sandwiches plus a banana. They really wanted an excuse to book me for some reason? As the officer wound his window back up, I said, "Thank you, cunt stubble." He wound the window back down to view my poker face, hesitated, then drove away. It made my morning. Thanks for the interesting question. Regards. S. Sitting alone on a public bench in a hoodie. Plant flowers. If you be outside at 3 a.m. planting flowers, you probably just buried a body. For me personally, drink alcohol. I work 12-hour shifts and sometimes get off at 2:30 to 3 a.m. and proceed to enjoy a cocktail or beer. Unfortunately, that's frowned upon with the 9-to-5ers. A few I just came up with: showing up to a friend's without telling them. Sitting alone in the kitchen stuffing your mouth with food gardening. Wearing my Batman costume to masturbate in front of my neighbor's sprinkler every third Tuesday of the month. I have a neighbor who sweeps their front yard at 3 a.m. Creepiest thing I've ever seen. Probably works night shift. I work night shift and do all my housekeeping at like 3 a.m. on my nights off. Only time I can do it. Shit with the lights off. Enter a jewelry store. Inspect for bugs in the yard. Visit your dear grandmother's grave in your best-looking clothes. 11/10 someone will create a thread on Reddit about a ghost the very next morning. I once saw a dude clipping his hedge with rusty shears at 3 a.m. He noticed me looking and said, "Promised the wife I'd have this done." Hey, I backed away slowly. Moving stuff into your new apartment. AKA my current 3 a.m. activities. Edit, especially when it is mostly a bunch of unmarked garbage bags. Digging in your backyard. Walk through a Disney park. I worked third shift there for a while and it's eerie when it's empty. You and the boys looking for beans. Walking behind someone who is going the same direction as you. Eat whole children. Playing the piano. Go to the beach with your family. Skipping rope and singing nursery rhymes in the park, better if you are a small female child in a frilly dress. Knock on your new neighbor's door and introduce yourself. Eat leftover buffalo wings over the kitchen sink in your underwear. Wait, I got it backwards. Wow, what was it supposed to be? Balloon animals. Walk around the streets with certain sports equipment. Was carrying my cricket gear home, but didn't have a case, bag for the bat. Was fine walking through town with it in the sunny, happy afternoon. Not so much walking home later. I got stopped by the police just a few doors down from my house. They escorted me back to make sure I was safe at this time of night. Going for a run. I've often gone for an early morning, late night run during the summer, as it's much cooler, quieter, and there are fewer people about to accidentally bump into. That excuse didn't go down too well when I had a police car stop me as I was going for one of my traditional early morning runs, saying that they'd received complaints of a suspicious individual passing their house in the early hours every few mornings, often glancing at their car or at the house. I explained to the police that the subject car is a heap of shit that stands out so much that I use it as a mile marker for my route, and that I have to check the house number if the car isn't there that morning as a marker instead. That got a chuckle and they left me on my way. 3 days later I came back and nicked the car as planned. I once went to Winco at 3 a.m. to buy highlighters and poster board, and I joked to the cashier that this must be a weird thing for someone to purchase at this time of day. She proceeded to tell me about this guy who would show up every Wednesday at 3 a.m. and buy a 12-pack of beer, donuts, frosting, and donut holes. He would get drunk and use the frosting to glue the donut holes back into the donuts. What is the greatest comeback to an insult you've ever heard? Younger lady was acting like a total bitch in this restaurant to the staff, and this middle-aged lady said, "Oh honey, you're not pretty enough to act like that." In a heated argument my mom called my brother a son of a bitch. He replied, "You got that right." As a pain in the ass child, I was getting yelled at by my dad, probably for doing something dumb or dickheaded. My dad had had it with my bullshit and yelled, "Listen here, you son of a bitch." I retorted, "It's not very nice to talk about mom like that, Dad. 0 would not recommend." A friend of mine in first-year university had never really dated any girls yet. This dumb meathead that we were kind of friends with told him, "When you do get a girlfriend, I'm totally going to fuck her." He responded, "If I had a girlfriend that would fuck you, her cheating on me wouldn't be the issue." Not quite an insult, but I still think of this comeback to this day. I have 2 little brothers and it was my dad's birthday, so the semi-extended family were all at a restaurant to celebrate. I had just graduated from my dad's alma mater, and my middle brother was currently a junior there. My youngest brother, a freshman, however, opted to go to state school. At one point my uncle said, "So, youngest brother, how does your dad feel about you breaking the trend of our last name men going to alma mater?" My little bro thought for a moment and then said, "Well, he probably doesn't mind considering I also broke the trend of not being able to get higher than a 3.0. The table exploded and my other brother and I just stared at each other across the table like, holy fuck, did we just get brutally murderer? It's especially funny because my little bro was one of those shy high school kids who went off to college and came back fun and socially confident. I was hoping that development would happen, I just never expected it to stab me in the fucking face. 1. Everyone thinks you're an asshole. 2. Well, you know what everyone thinks about you? Nothing. No one ever thinks about you. I know I don't. My dear grandmother. She had a quick and savage wit. My fiancé and I held a meet the whole family get together at my house. It was the first time his father met my grandmother. His dad was a large, physically intimidating man with a beer gut. He began telling stories to my grandmother about how my fiancé was a mischief maker when he was young, then told my grandmother how he would take off his belt and whip Joe for being bad. My frail little grandmother stares directly at my hubby's dad's tummy and says, "Your belt? However could you find it?" Future father-in-law was gobsmacked. Random kid, I bet you can't see your penis in the shower. My friend, nope, only your mom's head. Yes, I know this comeback was taken from somewhere, but that doesn't make it worse. Gordon Ramsay asks his daughter on camera, "So what's it like being the daughter of the most famous chef in the world?" His daughter replies, "I wouldn't know, Jamie Oliver's not my dad." Boom. Roasted. Was once criticized by an older family member for having a stray tooth that gave me a bit of a craggy smile as an adolescent. It has settled in nicely. I was raised to not criticize what people can't help and to give compliments where possible, and so I did just that, sorta. Aunt, nice crocodile smile. Me, thanks. Aunt, it's just that tooth, you know, makes your smile all crooked, but it's not that bad. You could get it fixed. Me, I suppose, but I know I'll never have teeth as nice as yours are. They are like stars. Aunt, like stars? You mean as in bright? Me, no, as in they come out at night. My uncle had given me a book called 1001 Insults for Every Occasion a while earlier, and that gem was in it. From Casablanca, Ugarte, you despise me, don't you? Rick, if I ever gave you any thought I might. Michael Ginsberg, I feel bad for you. Don Draper, I don't think about you at all. When I was in middle school many years ago, a bully was teasing an awkward kid about not being able to get girls and being gay and never being able to get laid. Another bully spoke up to the first bully and said, "Bitch, you ain't had pussy since pussy had you," and the entire class and the teacher started laughing. The original bully shut up. Update, teacher didn't start belly laughing with everyone in the middle of the class. This occurred between classes, as students were coming in. Teacher definitely heard, definitely smiled, and stifled his laugh. IIRC, he said, "Knock it off boys, time for class to begin." Nobody clapped. No principal came in and clapped. This happened 30 years ago. Bully 1 is a police officer now. Bully 2 is a semi-truck driver. Awkward kid is a mechanical engineer. A neighborhood kid was picking on my daughter, and she replied with, "I'm sorry, you are so sad." Kid just walked away. Lunch lady got me in front my whole class. Tuna fish was for lunch. I said, "Tuna fish, I'd rather a shit sandwich." Quote. Without missing a beat, this 80-year-old lady fires back, "Wait right there, I can make you one in the back." Needless to say, I went with the tuna. Are you retarded? Why? Are you starting a club? I heard a story once about some girls in an elevator who were insulting some black guy in another language they thought he didn't understand, Hindi I think, specifically commenting on his ugly black face. Apparently the guy waited till the elevator reached his floor, looked at them, and in perfect Hindi said, "Better to have an ugly face than an ugly heart," and left. Go fuck yourself, fuck me yourself, you coward. A girl told me if I took my shirt off at the beach the glare would blind everyone, because I was so pale. I told her, "At least when I go the beach people don't try to push me back into the sea." Winston Churchill is attributed some great ones. Lady Astor, Mr. Churchill, you're drunk. Churchill, yes madam, and you are ugly, but tomorrow I shall be sober. And also Lady Astor, Winston, if you were my husband, I'd poison your tea. Churchill, Nancy, if I were your husband, I'd drink it. Was jokingly asked out to year 10 formal prom in front of whole class by a popular girl who definitely had no interest in me. I without a moment's hesitation say no thanks Lauren. I have standards, whole class and teacher lost it. Sitting in a bar at 3 a.m. off of Bourbon Saint, the windows are just open shutters. Dude who just left the bar leans in on our table to shout at some friends still in the bar. One of our group makes a silly, snide comment. Dude leaning in smacks the table with an open palm and says, "Everybody who ever loved you was wrong." Then he walks away without looking back. We still revel in that story. Who the fuck are you? I'm the guy who does his job, you must be the other guy. Does your ass ever get jealous of the shit that comes out of your mouth? I don't go down to the docks and take sailors' dicks out of your mouth, so why do you hassle me at work? During my university days, I ran into a acquaintance of mine, and I was holding a Green Lantern graphic novel. My friend introduced me to his current girlfriend, and the first thing she says to me while shaking my hand was, "Aren't comic books for kids?" And I replied, "Aren't those a cups for kids?" Honestly, I was in so much shock that someone I just met would say that to me that I replied on instinct. Still my greatest comeback ever. I was playing spades one time and a guy tried to lead the game off with a spade. I told him he couldn't do that, spades have to be broken first. He refused to play by the rules, so I refused to play. He started singing, "The wheels on the bus go round and round," to imply that I was acting like a child. He asked me, "Do you know why I'm singing that?" I said, "Yeah, 'cause I'm taking you to school." A street hustler is trying to hand out, sell CDs, and an overweight gentleman walks by and says, "No thanks." Hustler, if it was a donut, you'd eat it. Tubby, if it was $1, you'd beg for it. I was in first grade and we were on the bus about to go home, and some mean bully yelled at me and it went like this. Bully, "Hey, my name, why are you so gay?" Me, "Because I like to copy you." Bus, "Ooh, that was the best comeback I have ever made," and the kid behind me said, "Ha, nice." Then like bro slapped my hand and I felt so cool. Later in 7th grade I figured out I was gay, so checkmate bully. I've been called much worse by people much better. My science teacher assigned a really hard test and almost everyone failed. Everyone complained and she responded with, "Someone got a 93%, so it's not impossible." Then this one kid in the back said, "The answer key doesn't count, Mrs. Teacher." Teacher asks a tough question. Jimmy says the correct answer. Karen, "Lol, you're such a nerd." Teacher, "Be nice to him, Karen. He could be your boss someday." Jimmy, "It's okay, teacher. I have no interest on being a pimp anyway." Whole class losing their minds. Today in one of my classes we were working on a project about careers, and one of the kids shouted, "I want to be a male stripper." The teacher responded, "I think you might be missing some of the qualifications for that job." Someone once told me I had a face only a mother could love. I responded with, "Yes, your mother." I was at a Jets home game back when the Giants and them shared Giants Stadium. Someone wearing a Jets jersey says to someone wearing a Miami Dolphins uniform, "This is our house, dude in Miami Dolphins uniform, you're in Giants Stadium, asshole." Lost my shit after that one. The annoying kid of the grade had a spray bottle and kept on spraying it on people even though they asked him to stop, and some girl walked to him and it went something like this, "Dude, can you stop?" Nah, is it the only way you can make a girl wet? In 8th grade this kid yelled in the cramped hallway, "Hurry up and move, y'all smell like ass," to which I replied, "It's 'cause your mouth is too close to your nose." And my junior year of high school this huge girl called me an asswipe for no reason, so I said, "You're just mad I can actually wipe my ass. You're the reason the gene pool needs a lifeguard, ya inbred." I once gave a classmate a penny and told him, "It always feel nice giving money to the poor." He responds with, "Thanks man, with this I can fuck your whore ass mom and still get change." I have read this historical meme where it went like this, "British person, you, French people, fight for only money. We, British, fight for honor. French person, well, people fight for what they need the most." I heard this when I was in middle school. Kid 1, "Your dick is the size of a Tic Tac." Kid 2, "So is that why your mom's breath is always minty?" Patting myself on the back for this one. I was helping a kid in class and big bully kid said I'm a nerd for helping. Told him, "Well, at least I'm graduating." Whole class went ooh. Thought I had to fight the guy after, so I watched my back the rest of the day. He didn't graduate, got caught with drugs and spent a few years in jail. In Beerfest when the dark-skinned dude smashes the ping-pong ball through the big German dude's beer mug and then shouts, "How do you like that, fuckhead?" And the German dude just takes a huge bite of broken glass off of the side of his mug and starts chewing it up and shouts back, "How do you like that, headfuck?" I always felt like that was the baddest ass thing that he could have possibly done in that moment. Kid in class, "I don't have a problem with people being gay in their houses, I just don't want to see it out in the world. I don't like looking at it, it disgusts me. I don't like looking at ugly people, but nobody is making you wear a bag over your face." In high school, this chubby fat dude made fun of another guy in class, kept mocking him with his curly hair. This other guy is an introverted nerdy quiet guy. Suddenly he goes, "Yeah, well at least I can see my dick." Entire classroom went off. I will always remember that episode. It's been told that former French President Jacques Chirac once made the following comeback, which is legendary in France. Some dude yelled at him, "Connard, it means asshole," roughly. And he answered, "Pleased to meet you, I'm Jacques Chirac." Besides eating cereal with water, what is the most outrageous eating sin you have ever witnessed? My sister used to put ketchup on strawberries. This is why she had to be disappeared, isn't it? A former friend of mine once poured a can of Coors Light into a bowl of Cheerios. He called it Beerios. A watermelon and ketchup sandwich. I call it a sandwich because it makes me sad. Is the watermelon the bun? Or does this monstrosity desecrate bread, too? Saw a dude eat spaghetti in milk one time. One very dark time. One time, a long time ago, I ate Lucky Charms with Guinness as a St. Patrick's Day bastardization. I would not recommend. I work at a pub, restaurant waiting tables. This couple walks in who I've never seen but are apparently regulars. The bartender sees them, shoots me a glance, and goes to grab something from the kitchen. Before even taking their order, he's filled the crushed red pepper shaker and told me to take it over to them. The woman orders a small cup of French onion soup and proceeds to unscrew the cap of this shaker and dump the entirety of it onto her soup, an inch high off the top of her bowl. She's eating this spicy red pepper like cereal and didn't even ask for a drink refill. Kid I used to know in school used to rip open his milk carton and dip his burrito into the chocolate milk. Sometimes he'd even go so far as to rip open the burrito and pour his milk onto the beef and eggs too. I'm quoting him here, "Creamify the meat." I don't know, man, but the word creamify is just, I had a friend who went through a period where cake decorating was her hobby, and she made some amazing looking cakes that all tasted horrible because of the bizarre flavor combinations. It was always a bit funny because people would compliment the look of them and then have to figure out how to throw their pieces away without being rude about it. The worst one was a Christmas cake with an immaculate-looking fondant Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer that was an orange spice cake covered in mint icing. It was like brushing your teeth and rinsing with orange juice in cake form. Fried eggs with chocolate melted on the yolk. Dude in my dining hall had a plate of sunny side-up eggs. Scooped under an egg with his fork, brought it up to his mouth, and only touched his lips to the yolk. Proceeded to suck all the yolk, and then slurped the rest of the egg in. It was like a car crash. I couldn't look away but I was horrified. My mom puts peanut butter on cold pizza. It is the closest flavor to vomit that is not vomit. Peanut butter and mayonnaise sandwich. When I visited my aunt's family as a kid, she served a purple cow milk mixed with grape juice for breakfast. If you haven't tasted that, take my word for it, it's not a great concoction. I knew a guy who would bite into Hot Pockets in the middle, holding each end. WTF, man. Ketchup on sushi. Shivers. My dad's girlfriend puts cucumber in any hot dish she can. Green chili, chicken soup, taco meat, sky's the limit. She also doesn't believe in draining noodles and will let them sit in hot water until each strand of bloated spaghetti is as thick as a goddamn shoelace. I don't eat there anymore. My sister would make Ritz cracker sandwiches, except the thing that went between the two Ritz cracker buns was another Ritz cracker, except chewed up and spit out. It was disgusting. I wasn't going to tell this story but here I am. As a kid I would eat a whole bag of Doritos without swallowing, and then I'd spit out the pulverized chip dust and saliva mixture and roll it into a ball with my hands and then let it harden a bit in my desk at school between first and second break and then eat it again during lunch when the outside was a bit crunchy again but the inside was still moist and the consistency of a chocolate truffle. My wife dips PBJs into SpaghettiOs. I used to be obsessed with A1. I would put it on everything possible because I loved it so much. One day I put it on Jell-O. I no longer enjoy A1. Dipping Oreos in orange juice. I watched a guy pour Sprite into a nice $50 bottle of wine because he didn't like the flavor. My Asian relatives eat shrimp with all the legs and stuff still on. A couple of years ago when my best friend and I were still in college, she stayed over at mine a few times. It was then that I learned that she liked dipping cheese into hot chocolate. Like, full-on dunking it in, waiting for it to partially melt, swirling it around and then eating it. I love her to bits, she's like my kid sister, but I still haven't entirely recovered. Went to college with this one girl who would get a chef salad, slice up banana and put it on said chef salad, then use ketchup as dressing. I shit you not, this person ate that on a regular basis. My baby sister used to eat pancakes and ranch. My mom just accepted it because she was such a picky eater and this was something she just thoroughly enjoyed. We're pretty sure it's 'cause my mom craved both when she was pregnant with her. A ketchup brownie. My cousin, this son of AB, eats cereal with orange juice instead of milk. The guy on 4chan who fermented a bottle of his own semen into liquor. My friend was eating salad with his hands at a restaurant. He's not my friend anymore. I live with someone who lives to eat food sins. Do you really think water with cereal is bad? Boy, the thing I would consider the least of eating sins would be when she microwaved a fucking pickle with cheese on it, then dipped in fucking ice cream. I can't stand to sit in the kitchen when she's in there because of the shit she made. If anyone is interested, I'll provide more horrid creations she made and ate, but all you really need to know is that fucking pickle. I worked in a restaurant that served authentic imported Kobe beef. I had someone order a 16 ounces Kobe filet mignon, well done. The chef nearly cried and definitely threw things. If I recall correctly, he ended up having to put that $200 steak into the microwave to get it to cook all the way through to well without burning the outside to charcoal. The guest was pleased and his date looked horrified. When I was a server, I had a customer dip her bread in a glass of Coke. She finished her whole bread basket and Coke and asked for another basket and another refill of Coke, and went to town again for round 2. She didn't give a crap how she looked and ate that shit like it was the best thing on earth. Mixing ketchup with soda. Granted we were trying to gross each other out, but still. It was an act of culinary violence unlike anything else I've ever seen. Can we stop putting ketchup on literally everything? I used to make cheese sandwiches with cinnamon raisin bread. I used to eat blueberries with ketchup on them because I liked the texture. My whole sibling group eats tomatoes and peeled oranges, clementines like a normal person would eat an apple, but the worst I've ever seen is a guy in my class take a cheese and sauce filled roll type thing, rip a hole in the bottom and suck it dry. In a restaurant with other people. Another time, my little sister, she was a tiny kid at the time, got gulab jamun at an Indian buffet. They're like milky donut holes soaked in watery sugary syrup. She leaned over the table and vacuumed them up off the plate so she didn't get her hands sticky. This is my own confession. I really love to eat lemons. Not in wedges or squeezed on things, but in the way you would eat an orange or a clementine, by peeling it and eating the whole thing. For some reason sourness is just the best to me. I'm a person of many weird food preferences, but this is the one that causes witnesses to cringe the most. As a kid, we heard about cheeseburger pizza but with ketchup and mustard instead of tomato sauce, American cheese instead of mozzarella, and hamburger meat on top. So, we tried it. You wouldn't think it would be that different. The ingredients are the same as an actual hamburger. Except pizza dough is actually very different from the bread of a hamburger bun. It's kind of sweeter and fluffier, and really soaks in the ketchup and mustard to an absolutely disgusting degree. It's awful. My friend ran out of milk so she thought she could possibly use coffee creamer instead. Mom's boyfriend crushed cheese and crackers into his coffee. That day he ate waffles covered in spinach and fish sticks drizzled with syrup. All the while loudly smacking his lips saying, so good. Mom says don't let it bother me. It bothers me. Eating a Kit Kat whole as opposed to individually tearing off the chocolate fingers. I'm not sure if this counts, but there is a guy at my uni who eats all his meals on his laptop keyboard. He sets his food on the keyboard and eats off of it. Makes me so uncomfortable. My roommate's mom eats peanut butter and onion sandwiches. The wife dips Oreos in water like a psychopath. My wife likes crunchy peanut butter and bologna sandwiches with cheese. Her mom also adds mayo. I just can't bring myself to try it, literally start retching at the thought of the flavor. When I was in grade school I went over to this kid's house to play, then ended up staying for dinner. We had spaghetti, some vegetable, maybe salad and something else. His entire family would mix everything together before eating it. His dad seemed to be the ringleader, mastermind behind this scheme. I remember someone cheerfully saying, well, it all goes to the same place. And then the rest of them agreeing with this truism as if it were some serious folk wisdom. That's some serial killer shit right there. In college I would sometimes drain the water out of my shrimp cup, noodles and mix in a big spoonful of peanut butter. I honestly don't know what to tell you other than I did it once out of boredom. It wasn't terrible, and it made my life interesting. Drinking ranch straight out if the bottle. My friend dips her pizza on Coke. Mustard on waffles. I was a weird kid. My cousin put salt in her cereal one time. She puked like 5 minutes after. Well, I just saw that Heinz mayonnaise has come out with a Cadbury eggs mayonnaise, and I'm really concerned for the people who eat that abomination. My preteen cousin likes his scrambled eggs crunchy and adds broken up eggs shells to them. My best friend, despite much protest, decided to mix canned corn in her Frosted Flakes and milk because she thought she would like the texture. She did not. We still are unsure of what provoked her to make such poor decisions, but believe her trail of thought put corn flakes and corn together to make one disgusting combination. Lol. People ridicule me for committing the sin of microwaving bacon. I don't give a shit. You throw 3 slices in a folded paper towel on a microwave-safe plate and 45 seconds later you have an awesome treat to throw on a turkey sandwich with minimal cleanup. Go fuck yourselves. So the other afternoon I was a bit tipsy and making sandwiches for my husband, and I had a hankering for curried egg sandwiches but couldn't find the Keen's. So I made it with Dijon mustard and seeded mustard. When hubby asked me WTF I was thinking and how the seeded mustard really put him off, I said I was attempting deviled eggs. He said, it was the devil alright. Serious, when was the first time you had experienced racism? I mean, elementary school? Other kids making fun of my middle name, which is Chinese, or doing that thing where they pull their eyes to be narrower and then speaking in broken English. IDK, kids are dumb. Where does it go from cultural insensitivity to racism? Not a clue, but did it make me feel like an outsider? Yup. I was walking and holding hands with a girl after a date. She was colored, which is a different thing than black, in South Africa. Near the train station in Cape Town, a large group of black men objected threateningly to my stupidity in thinking that just because Mandela got elected I get to walk around holding hands with a colored girl. Things moved towards violence, and another group of men, colored men, arrived and stepped in on that point, taking my side, I think, just to motivate conflict with the other group. My date and I just ran. I'm a white-black mix, but my skin is pretty fair, so I don't experience much of the racism against black people. When I was in 7th grade though, I went to a mostly white school, and I was the only kid of color in my math class, and the only mixed kid in my grade I think. I was decent at math before I had this teacher, but I started doing horribly in her class as she would take off crazy amounts of points for little mistakes. I had to start going a mathematics learning center just to keep from failing the class. At first I just thought she didn't like me as a person until I moved on to 8th grade. I knew 2 sisters who were also mixed in the grade below who were now in her math class, and they experienced the same problems with her. We found out that no one else had a problem with this teacher being crazy harsh, only us mixed kids. It was pretty indirect, but it raised some flags. When I was a little kid my mom was accused of stealing me. I'm Asian and she's white, I'm adopted. My dad, also white, feels uncomfortable in public with me because people think I'm a mail-order bride. 1985, small town in the north. A Hmong man kidnapped a 7-year-old girl and raped her, claiming she was now his bride. When he was caught, his lawyer tried claiming it was because he didn't understand our laws. So the judge responded, "So this is okay in Laos?" Guy never made it to prison after that. My grandpa said the town changed after that. Everyone was really suspicious of Hmong men at that point. Local shops wouldn't serve them. There was a campaign to demand they get removed. It was a weird time for a 5-year-old who had a few Hmong friends. I was 8 years old. I was at school in London and some of the cool kids came up to me and started saying that I was a terrorist. I didn't know what that meant and I doubt they did either. I still remember the look on my mum's face when I went home and asked her. She just looked so sad. Once she'd explained to me what terrorism was and why the kids were saying it, I started noticing it everywhere. Ignorance is bliss. Was 8. Was playing on some monkey bars in a neighbor's backyard with their daughter. I'm Asian, she's white. My twin sister was also with us. We were having the time of our lives. My sis and I had been coming over for weeks after school, no permission needed. Her mom came home early. She came to the backyard and started yelling. Grabbed her crying daughter, yelling she can't play with us anymore because she's already got so many nice white friends. She brought her daughter inside, and came out again to yell at us to comfortable with my skin color. The first I can remember was about age 5 to 6. We spent more time at that age with family and close friends, so I first learned I was an outsider by other Asians. They spoke the language, I didn't, and my mom was white, so the other kids, cousins, made sure to distinguish I wasn't really one of them. Around the same age I learned at school that I'd be the token Asian friend. The most common phrase kids and now adult professionals use is, "What are you?" Well, I'm some kind of Asian halvesy who looks Hispanic. People suck. At my grandmother's house in the 1960s. I was old enough to understand some of the nuances of speech. My mother and grandmother were discussing my black, curly hair, and in a sarcastic manner, my grandmother said, "Perhaps he's got a touch of the tar brush." It was part of an ongoing love-hate relationship between my mother and grandmother, and although I knew the comment to be meant as an insult, it was a while before I knew my grandmother meant, father unknown, and likely to be, a black man. This tarbrush term was still common parlance in that part of the world when I left the area in the 1980s. Thank you for the interesting question. I am white British. But I was with my black Portuguese friends in a pub bathroom. I was having a wee and they were by the sinks talking in their language. Another white British woman came out of a cubicle and started to tell them to speak English and fuck off back to their own country. When I came out of my cubicle, she rounded on me and told me to fuck off to my own country too. As soon as I spoke in my very obvious British accent and informed her I was already in my own county, she apologized and said her beef was with the black girls, not me. I told her I didn't give a fuck, I now have a problem with her. Called her a racist and said she was an embarrassment to white people and made her apologize to my friends or I'll get her kicked out. One of my friends was crying in the toilet by this point and the other told me once the white lady left that this happened all the time. Why people feel the need to bully based on skin or language is beyond me. My mom still talks about this one. It was when I was 4, my little brother was 2, my older brother was 5.5, and my sister was 7. My mom would walk us to a church program when we were young. We weren't Christian, we're Muslim, and on our way there some men in a truck yelled at my mom saying, "Go back to your country, ya dirty immigrant." Apparently I yelled back, "Hey, that's not very nice, have a good day, mister," because my mom always taught us to be kind even if someone is mean. My mom still brings it up asking me why I'm not that nice anymore. Now I just gotta say, Mom, I'm not as optimistic as I used to be. First time I realized something that is similar to racism but just as bad was when I was young and a relative made an offensive joke about Muslims and pork. I thought it was funny, I didn't understand it on a bigoted level. I told my Muslim friend it cause ya know it's a joke about Muslims and he's a Muslim. In my young mind it made sense. Well, after his parents called in the school to complain, after my friend told them about it. I had to write an apology letter, and after it was explained to me what bigotry but definitely not racism was, I was more than happy to apologize profusely. Another example that kids aren't bigoted but are taught that way. Well, I've experienced instances of subtle racism before, but I would say that I experienced outright racism only really when I moved. When I got my first job here, customer service, some typical old man, probably from the colonial era, refused my service and loudly talked to my coworker about certain nationalities and their thieving nature. Then at my second job in a nightclub, which I still work at actually, I get occasional comments like my skin being the color of shit from drunk, aggressive people. I hate it so much. I go through more subtle types of racism too, mostly in which people assume negative things about me based on my nationality, and I would say it bothers me more than the above. I come from a country which isn't really well liked and kind of misrepresented, on Reddit and by Western countries in general. It's given me a bit of a complex where I'm conscious to shed the stereotypes people tend to assume about me. I can't really explain it better than that. Growing up, my parents were civil rights testers, people hired, volunteer to investigate specific claims of racial discrimination in businesses. I remember being with my mom at a restaurant and being made to wait for a table or being denied service, while my dad, the white man for the test, would be seated immediately. I was called the N-word in the 3rd grade. I remember in primary school, a 6-year OLF telling someone of the same age, of African descent, "You can't play with us because you're black." Couple of years later, the kid drowned in a canal. My family and I lived in Saudi Arabia for 16 years. When I was 4, a bunch of Arab women pulled me and my sisters, she was 7 at that time, hair and laughed about it. Being an innocent preschooler at that time, I was physically hurt but didn't understand why they did that to me and my sister. My mom just told us they fancied our hair. So I just teared up a little from the pain and moved on. Fast forward to when I was around 9, 10 years old. The same shit happened to me while I was shopping for school supplies at a store near my school. That time, I was pretty sure it wasn't because they liked my curly hair. I saw a condescending smirk as I looked at the grown-ass woman who pulled my hair. We barely go back home, so I've always thought that KSA was my home. I realized that it really wasn't and will never be completely accepted the way Asians are in other parts of the world. I'm Muslim, and in middle school there were these group of kids who were complete jerks to me. For an entire year, they'd say I was ISIS, I was hiding a bomb in my book bag, or I was gonna blow up the school. I just went along with it and played it off as a joke. I didn't wanna seem as a crybaby or anything. After that year, it stopped, but I still experience racism like that to his day, and the best thing I can do is play it off as a joke and not care, because it's just a stereotype. Can't let this stuff get to me. In first grade, we were doing a 12 Dancing Princesses skit and the seniors, middle schoolers, everyone fair ended up getting selected, and me the darkest wasn't. These have been so impactful on me that even today, I try to just rub off all the melanin off my skin. No matter how hard I try, this world has convinced me that dark is ugly. School, high school, etc. There was always a derogatory term for a dark-skinned person. At some point was called Apu. God, I hated that character because of this. I've experienced racism even amongst my own race. I'm a darker-skinned Malay. Lighter-skinned Malays are always acting all superior and shit because of it. Sheesh. When my mother ripped my hand out of the hand of the black boy I was playing with after school. You were the best at pretending to be Sonic, Thomas. Some asshole store owner from Hong Kong told us to leave saying, "No Filipino. No Filipino. No money." What is something someone said to you that hit you the hardest? Never grow up, just learn to be an adult. Thanks, Dad. Never make fun of someone's laugh because they will be self-conscious about being happy. Waking up to gold is a beautiful thing, thanks. I've lived a good life. I'm ready to go, my grandma who is still physically and mentally healthy. I just wasn't ready for it. When you find someone better, please just let me down gently. Are you still with the person who said this to you? Yep, love em so much. What up? I got a new phone and went out of state for the weekend on the same day. I tried to activate the new phone but they wouldn't let me until I was back in my home state. On the drive home, one of my friends called my brother, who I was with, to get a hold of me and tell me our other friend committed suicide. Later that day I got my new phone activated and got a text from the friend that committed suicide that just said, "What up?" He must have sent it not long before he killed himself, not knowing I couldn't text back. I can't imagine how alone he must have felt. I know it sounds conceited, but I can't help but think if I was able to talk to him, maybe he wouldn't have done it. You just feel like a chore now. This happened when I was either 6 or 7. Mom, why are you always hugging me? Me, cause you're my mom. Mom, yeah, or you just want to feel my breasts. 20 years later and that still bothers me, cause that was the first time I ever felt ashamed, dirty, but I couldn't understand why. Not me, but a friend of mine was smoking on a break at work and a woman did the whole, "Why smoke? Smoking's bad" thing, and he said he just didn't have a good reason to quit, to which she said, "Son, there are people you haven't even met yet who are going to need you here." I never forgot it. I quit just a month or so after that, and I remember it whenever I'm about to do something stupid, so daily. It doesn't matter if you hit a home run or strike out, I'll always be your #1 fan. My grandpa when I was going through a very rough time. My mother once told me, "I think you've been miserable your entire life," in regards to my depression. It may sound like a horrible thing to hear, but she was not trying to upset me. She was basically saying, "You've done everything you can by yourself to try to get out of this depression, but I think it's always been there, so you need help." Last time I saw one of my friends, he told me, "Catch you on the flip side." He hung himself a week later. I'm proud of you and your brother, from my dad. He grew up with a conservative, religious, military household. Old school mentality of dad works and only is involved in family when it's time to discipline. I was always shy and depressed and hated disappointing him, and it came to a point when I started driving and got my car stuck in snow that I didn't want to tell him about it. When my mom told him, she made it clear his kids were afraid of him and he realized he had become his dad, which he hated. The change has been extreme, from a strict, work yourself to death, hard ass to a family guy. Told me on my wedding day that he was proud of me and my brother, because he never heard it from his dad. We all find you annoying. Since then, I've always been the quiet kid. I wish you could just stop caring what he says. My dad, after I got the umpteenth emotionally manipulative text from my abusive ex-husband, this was over 2 years after our divorce was finalized. My dad doesn't say much on an emotional level, so when he does say something, I know it has deep meaning. I went no contact with my ex, and remain so to this day. And I'm a much happier and more serene person for it. A coworker once told me all stress is relative. You have no right to undermine what someone else is going through, no matter how small compared to your stress. I think about it a lot. He was so right. I was young and being an a-hole. When I was a little girl, I adored my dad, followed him everywhere, wanted to do everything he did, and I sure tried. He was never great at saying how he felt, but I always remember saying, "I love you, Daddy." And he always replied, "I love you, daughter." When I was a preteen, he had no idea what to do with me, and backed off hard. I was super awkward as a preteen teenager, and our relationship was super rocky. We had a lot of hurtful exchanges, and I spent as little time at home as I could. In the summer of 2007, I wrote him a letter, telling him that the way he distanced himself from me was hurtful, and that I didn't know how to deal with the harshness of our current relationship, but that I still loved him and wanted to try and move past our painful interactions and rebuild our relationship. He never responded to most of it, but told me he was sorry, and wanted to fix things, too. That winter, he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. I moved home and took over household things, helping deal with doctors, physical therapists, and eventually hospice. My mom was, understandably, a mess, and I tried hard to hold it together for them. Things were getting bad, he was fading hard. One night I went in to say goodnight to him, and in a wave of nostalgia, I said, "I love you, Daddy." He hadn't spoken all day, his throat was dry, he was on massive doses of morphine, but he still whispered back to me, "I love you, daughter." He slipped into a coma that night, and never spoke another word. After the birth of my first child at age 17, my aunt told me, "This is your responsibility. This child didn't ask to be here. Didn't ask for you as a mother, didn't ask for him as a father. It's going to be hard, but it's not his fault he is here." Really made me step up and try my hardest to be a good mother. I hear her voice every time I see a news story about child abuse or neglect. You can be the sweetest peach on the peach tree, but not everyone likes peaches. I love you. My grandma always believed in showing love, not saying it. She believed actions spoke louder than words. 4 days before she passed away, she told me she loved me. I was shocked at this, but I told her I loved her too. It was so unlike her. I now realize that maybe she said it because, with how weak she was due to the sickness, she felt like she couldn't show it. I don't know. Maybe I'll never know. But that was when I knew that she didn't have much time left. These people, these managers and these directors and all those other coworkers who are marginally above you, they don't give a flat fucking shit about you. Protecting you is not in their interests. The only things they are protecting are the company, because that keeps the paychecks coming, and if they have to choose you over their bills, then they will fuck you every single time. So don't ever trust them, no matter how much they sound like they are going to bat for you, no matter how fucking sincere those bastards seem like they are being. That was my coworker Matt, before he quit his job when we worked together as an insurance adjuster. Made me really open my eyes and realize how people behave at offices and see through corporate bullshit. My mom once told me when I was a teenager that it took a lot of courage to take your own life, and you could do a lot with that courage instead of killing yourself. It's not exactly earth-shaking, but I never understood playing games with cheats. From time to time I'd use them, but I had friends who'd barely play a game without using cheats. Out of the blue, years after I was big into gaming, I visited a friend who was playing GTA 4. She was playing with cheats and I asked her why. She says, "All day I have to deal with consequences, this is the one time I don't have to." It completely 180 my viewpoint. I've never had so much make sense, change my opinion, by one simple sentence. She suffers with depression, so for me, it ran a lot deeper than just playing games. It made me think twice about questioning the things people enjoy or how they live their lives. I never thought something so trivial could hold such poignance. I was at an interview recently and there was a young man about my age who turned to me and said, "Hey, bro, can you help me tie this necktie? I didn't have a dad to teach me growing up, so I still don't know how to do it." That really struck a heartstring with me. The fact that this man I barely even knew felt confident revealing something so vulnerable make me instantly respect him. It was strange, but I got the impression that he was someone I could be good friends with. We both got hired. I look forward to working with him soon. Edit, many of you were wondering why he didn't Google how to tie his necktie. This was a law enforcement oral board exam, psychological interview we were both attending. The academy instructors had pulled us from the auditorium where they were keeping all the recruit candidates so we could get fitted for our BDUs, PT gear and polos. As such, we were told to leave all our belongings except the suits on our backs. No phones are allowed in that part of the academy anyway. Hope you enjoyed. Hit hard both on each side of the situation. Then girlfriend, as we were breaking up, admitted she was nervous about doing it herself because she was worried I'd kill myself. I said I felt the same way, vice versa. And I still hear that conversation in my head. You have an energy I've always found challenging, by way of saying I don't wanna talk to you anymore, felt like out of the blue. Was meant to be kind, I think. Fucking ouch. Uncle committed suicide when I was a little kid. When I asked my mom how he died, she said he was depressed. I asked, depression can kill someone? She said, it can if you're sad enough. Here I am about 20 years later. I'm so proud of you, said to me by my swim coach after I came in last, 5 minutes after everybody else. I realized then that nobody had ever been proud of me before for something I didn't succeed in. Everybody shows pride when you succeed. When you give your best and come up short anyway, having someone still be proud of your effort means the absolute world. We broke up because of you. I've been going through a rough patch lately. Last night was a friend's birthday dinner that I was invited to where I don't know anyone. I figured I would stay for a drink and excuse myself. His friends are kind of snobs and very elitist. If you aren't some supermodel millionaire they want look at you. I was nervous and at one point a guy came up to me and said, "You don't belong here, you don't dress like them, act like them, or talk like them. That's what I like about you." And that meant a lot to me because I wanted to be accepted in the in group because I've been feeling shitty and thought it would make me feel better. But that comment made me very emotional, so did Dylan at the party. Thank you a lot. One day, you'll wake up next to the ugly girl you're dating and you'll shame our family. Yesterday is heavy. Put it down. Nothing is enough for you. Never, my father said it so desperately, like he was asking me to stop doing something I never understood he meant. I truly felt so guilty for everything that happened in my family after that, but when he said it I finally understood that my mind and soul were so full of anxiety that I never saw what I had but what I lacked. Arm amputees of Reddit, is sleeping on your side more or less comfortable now? Why? I dated a congenital left arm amputee, meaning he was born without his arm, and it was really convenient because his arm wouldn't fall asleep when we spooned in bed because there was none. Less comfortable. Sleeping on my side just feels weird. Also, the metal from the amputation hits my face and makes it very cold. Definitely more comfortable for me, there's nothing in the way. Mom's an amputee, lost it at 39, it's been 15 years since, she was a side sleeper, and says she can't sleep on the side with her amputation because it hurts too much. As for sleeping in the other side, it feels weird because her amputated arm just hangs. She forces herself to sleep on her back but never feels rested. I don't have an amputated arm but a paralyzed one and felt like you might be interested in my story as well. My left arm is permanently paralyzed due to an accident 3 years ago. Sleeping with it sucks because when laying on my left side my arm just feels like a foreign object that's poking in my side. Also, as you might, or not, imagine, turning during sleep is awkward as my left arm doesn't just come along, so I have to pick my left arm up in order to turn over. I mostly just lay on my back as any other position is just awkward. I have thought of amputating my arm but have not done it as I feel an arm in a sling will attract less looks as no arm at all. Fun fact, sometimes my right arm falls asleep when I sleep, so I wake up with two arms that can't function. Freaked me out the first time it happened, am used to it now. Not an amputee, but a rehab doc who has treated hundreds, if not thousands, of amputees. Amputation of a limb is so much more than the absence of a limb. Almost all amputees have some degree of residual limb pain, obviously varying in severity. When you transect a limb, scar tissue forms, bony overgrowth occurs, and nerves form often painful structures known as neuromas. These issues impact their lives in many aspects. Quality of sleep is a huge problem for many as nerve pain tends to be worse at night. The media depiction where your arm is cut off and now it's basically the same thing but shorter is totally fiction. Very few people are better off after an amputation than they were before. Limb amputation is a chronic disease which negatively impacts people in a lot of ways. I often do pre-amputation counseling, and it's amazing how many people falsely believe that their lives will be drastically improved after an elective amputation. As good as our newest prosthetic devices are, nothing beats your native limb if it's still functional. Elective amputation rarely solves the patient's problem, especially if it's pain. Probably the most original question here in years. Anyone who wonders where on earth this question came from has likely never been a devoted side sleeper who has woken up many a night in agonizing nerve pain from the arm under your body. I lost my left arm at the shoulder in 2011. Sleeping on my left side is great, and weird. My phantom limb hangs down through the bed. Trying to sleep on my right side sucks because now my phantom limb makes it seem like I'm holding my arm up in the air. I have this weird feeling that the people with the fewest arms sleep the best. Also, if you've lost an arm, how do you wash the armpit of the arm you still have? I have the feeling Op is seriously considering amputation for sleeping purposes. Not an arm amputee nor do I sleep on my side, but I have a dog who still has all of his limbs. Hope that answered your question. According to some research, sleeping on the right side allows your spine to take its natural position, which is thus more comfortable. However, sleeping on the left, which may also straighten your spine, it was unclear, can constrict your organs depending on their placement, but allow greater blood flow. The left side is also recommended for pregnancy, and sleeping with a pillow between your legs on either side is recommended. Sleeping on your back will take stress off of your organs and lungs but can weigh down other areas, and sleeping on your stomach can help with acid reflux. It really is a thing to think about and makes Metal Gear Solid, or in the case MGSV, stand out despite its flaws. One of the themes that MGSV touches on is loss, identity and limbs. Only one way to find out. My dad says it's much more comfortable now since I don't have to worry about an arm falling asleep on me. At first it took some getting used to. His arm was amputated from the armpit down. Extremely comfortable. Ooh, I bet they can spoon like a motherfucker. Don't have to figure out where to stick that other arm. What if you could just take off your arms and legs and sleep as a nugget? No flipping over every 5 minutes because your arm or leg decides to focus on that nub of blanket that's poking out. Then when you wake up you can crawl to your limbs and they would reattach and you're good to go. Not an arm amputee, but I had my tits removed and stomach sleeping is so much easier. Not an amputee but was born without my left forearm. Much prefer sleeping on my left side, and cuddling my BF is great on the left side as I don't have to worry about the awkwardness of where to put my arm while I'm laying my head on his chest. Smiley face. My ex sleeps on the side opposite of her amputated arm. When we were together she would wake up at night freaking out because she couldn't feel her arm, which was amputated, think ghost limbs, and then get depressed. She said her arm felt like it had just fallen asleep and she had no real feeling there. When the realization hit that her arm had been amputated a year prior, it gets rough. She changed her sleeping habits so that her amputated side wasn't beneath her. We still hang out on occasion and she's feeling much more confident than she did when we were together. On the flip side, if you only have one leg, there is much more leg room for the source has one leg. More comfortable. Because I'm not laying on my arm. Lost my right arm at the shoulder in a motorcycle wreck just about 6 years ago. You definitely want to be in my right in planes, buses, movies and at dinner. You get more room and both unrests. Score. To answer the ops question, as is usual in life, the answer is, it depends. Sometimes laying on my stump causes my phantom arm pains to get bad. Sometimes it's no big deal. If the day was stress-filled or the weather sucks, my phantom pain increases and that could lead to me not laying on my stump. The biggest downside for people who have had an arm amputated is the inability to pet two ducks at the same time. This is a question I never knew I had. Okay, not an amputee, but I do have a close friend. I asked him about it and he said he sleeps on the side that still has an arm. He said it's because when you put your non-existent arm through something, it hurts or just feels wrong. I thinks it's called ghost pain, or phantom pain or something, and I guess it makes sense. Wife of an amputee. Kudos to you for the question because I never thought this was a question I would see on here. Why though? He only has a handful of inches left of his left arm. When he does sleep on his left side he is never directly on his left arm. He kind of keeps it out in front of him like we would if we were to sleep with our left hand under our head, but he holds onto it with his right hand on top of it. Even though he lost his arm as a child I can lay on what's left of his arm without causing pain when wanting to cuddle or anything, and yes I do hold onto it or his sleeve if it's a long sleeve when we go for walks. However, even after just over 30 plus years the tip of the one is still rather sensitive. Less comfortable, sadly. Had to get a metal implant so I can attach my arm properly. Not an amputee myself but my dog is a front arm amputee. She seems to enjoy the lack of awkward arm and sleeps on her armless side favorably. Wow, finally a niche question made for me. Definitely more comfortable. I have a left arm only to my elbow, and that's my preferred side to sleep on. Does suck if I want to be on my right side and browse my phone at the same time. Always need the charger on the left side of the bed. It's the little things you don't think about. I'll just see these on YouTube. What about phantom limb syndrome? Is it like just sort of forgetting you don't have it and reaching for something instinctively and muscle memory giving you a brief sensation of it being there? Less comfortable. The prosthetic is too uncomfortable. Not amputee, but born with half of it. I prefer sleeping on my right side with full arm because it's too bright in my dumb neighborhood, but sleeping on my left is the bomb. No arm in the way. Probably bad for my back to practically dislocate it, but it's the best. As a person with a 4/4 amputation and having literally no right arm, I would have to say it depends. Overall I now sleep on my back, but if I sleep on my right side I have to have pillows propped a certain way to compensate the lack of a shoulder and not to press oddly on a bundle of nerves. Although, I always says it has its perks when cuddling and making reference to Mallrats. I'm missing my entire left arm including the shoulder. Born without it, I can only sleep on my left side, it's very comfy. I had a paralyzed arm for 2 years from a motorcycle accident. Cutting it off after failed restorative surgery was the best decision I ever made. That and marrying my wife. Not me, but I asked a friend who lost his arm and ear in a terrorist attack in Israel and he said less as the pressure on his arm is worse and he gets ghost pains when he lays on it, also he doesn't have a prosthetic. I am missing my left arm just below the shoulder, I sleep on that side comfortably. I would make a great big spoon but my wife and I sleep on the wrong side to make this happen for some reason. More. I have no hamstring, so I can pull my stump up as high as I want. Or flail it out beside me. Edit, I'm a leg amputee who can't read, apparently. This thread may take longer to get popular because it will take twice as long for the repsunders to tell us their stories. Damn savage, but good point. Not an amputee, but I did break my humerus a few years ago and as a side sleeper, it's been awful. I still can't lie on that side like I used to. My arm just doesn't go at the proper angle anymore. I'm not an amputee, but I'm missing half of my left arm due to congenital birth defect. I prefer to sleep on my left side. If I sleep on my right side, I have to use a pillow to sort of prop my left arm up. To have it hanging down is uncomfortable because of muscle deterioration, extremely underdeveloped shoulder blade, pinched nerves, etc. I lost part of my left arm in a childhood collusion with an electric iron mangle. That arm fits neatly under the pillow with no bothersome overhanging hand. When I roll over I find my right hand hanging off the bed or stuck between the openings in the headboard. What is a survival myth that is completely wrong and could get you killed? If you ever find yourself in snake country, make as much noise as possible. Most people want to avoid snakes, so stay quiet, but they are more scared of you than you are of them. Talk loudly, stomp, but obviously keep an eye and ear out for any fellas who don't want you to be there. Follow flying birds to find water. They can simply be flying to spend a night anywhere, so we can't rely on them. You do not need to wait 24 hours to report a missing person. If you think someone is missing, report it as such. The faster a missing person report is filed, the greater the chance the person will be found. Sucking a snakebite, it will often make it worse. Removing a bullet is more dangerous than leaving it in. Trying to remove it can tear vital organs, it can be pushed in even deeper, or removing it can cause the person to bleed out. Rescue breaths are wildly overrated in most movies and TV shows. You'll see someone in cardiac arrest, and the rescuer will stop giving compressions and focus on breathing into a person's mouth and blammo. Awake, alert, alive. Nope. Don't do that. Your body does store a fairly decent amount of oxygen in its blood at all times. If someone in front of you ODs and their mouth is covered with saliva, vomit, or someone collapses in front of you of a suspected cardiac arrest, your plan of action is twofold. Are they breathing? Do they have a pulse? This is easy to fuck up, especially in a moment of panic. My rule, as an EMS provider, is that if you don't feel it in 10 seconds, it's not there. Start compressions. If they are not in cardiac arrest, they will let your ass know, and the law covers you under Good Samaritan clauses in most of these cases. If you are the only person attending to this body, do not stop and give rescue breaths if help is on the way and will be there soon. It takes about 4 to 7 decent compressions to get blood recirculating in the body after stopping to give mouth to mouth. That's a lot of blood, carrying a lot of vital oxygen reserves, that aren't making it to the brain. Obviously, if you're a long way out from help, and you feel safe to do so, give rescue breaths. But it should never be priority number 1. By the way, if you hear ribs crack, make a face, make vomit noises if you have to, tell the person their bones are fucking grossing you out, but don't stop compressions. Because what are compressions? That's right. They are number fucking 1. The first mistake is to look for food and water first before having a shelter up to keep yourself dry and warm. Don't eat snow to stay hydrated if you're in a winter survival situation. Losing the heat to the snow while eating it is more dangerous than dehydration. Heat it up or let it melt in a container first to lose less heat. If you have to forage for food, avoid mushrooms entirely. Odds are so slim you will find an edible kind that you're much better off looking for things like nuts, seeds, and berries. Closest I can think of is brace yourself if you are about to get in an accident. Try to go limp, you're more likely to walk away with minor injuries if you go limp. That's how drunk drivers survive crashes. One I know of is the myth that you can drink water from a cactus. I heard it's false, and you can only drink from a small minority of cacti without having certain health consequences I am not aware of. Herbivorous animals are friendly and peaceful, so you are safe being around them, and their presence will show you where food is. Seriously, everything from cows to deer can and will kill you if you make it angry. It is usually a good idea if you are in the wilds not to get near any large wild animal, but herbivores can often be even more aggressive than the predators. You can hydrate from soda. If that's all you have, drink it. TLDR, if done right, a tourniquet should hurt like a motherfucker and you're going to want to loosen it, but in the words of Egan Spengler, it would be bad. Gradually loosening an applied tourniquet over time is a thing I still see in first aid training videos for some reason. Don't do that. Once a tourniquet is on, remember, and mark the person if you can, what time it was applied, and leave the rest to doctors in a stable environment. Loosening a tourniquet may result in blood loss returning, which requires retightening it. Tightening, loosening repeatedly may cause, on top of additional blood loss, blood to pool up inside the limb, which can cause even more damage. If you get stabbed with anything, don't pull it out, since it could be the thing that preventing you from bleeding out. Instead, immobilize it and go to the hospital where they can stop the bleeding when they remove the object. Don't stand underneath doorways in case of earthquakes. Doors and door frames are just not made the same anymore, so you're more likely to sustain more serious injuries if you do. You're better off staying hidden underneath a desk or table. Drinking alcohol to stay warm. You sweat, your blood will rush to your skin and you will freeze, die much faster. Apparently some people think the best way to survive a wolf attack is to bend down and show the wolf you're submissive towards him and pose as no threat. If you do this, you're dead. The wolf will 100% kill you. Your best bet is to walk away without turning your backs on them, maintaining eye contact the whole way. If you look away or turn your back, the wolf's killer instinct will kick in and it'll kill you. Don't make a lot of noise and aggressive movements towards a wolf the same way you do to a black bear, because most likely it'll be seen as a challenge, not a threat. Cotton wicks moisture. Cotton is probably the worst material to wear in an outdoor survival situation because it holds moisture and in doing so loses its ability to keep you warm. The YouTube videos on how to unarm an attacker from close range. You'll die before you can yell yeehaw. It won't kill you, but don't pee on a jellyfish sting. It will actually release more of the toxin. Trying to outrun a tornado is about the worst possible thing you can do in a tornado situation. Take shelter, get underground, go into an interior room, lay in a ditch while covering your head if you have to. Tornadoes are basically like 3-year-olds throwing temper tantrums, except instead of toys it's cars, buses and trains they're throwing around, but also toys too, which they can throw hard enough to literally pass through your body. A vehicle of any kind is about the last place you want to be when a tornado comes through. Punch a shark in the nose. A lot of Southeast Asians believe going from heat to aircon, jumping in a swimming pool on a hot day, or even fans will kill you. So many deaths happen every year because people are afraid of being shocked to death from going from hot to cold too quickly. That you can eat what animals eat. Not true. Animals have different digestion systems that aren't the same as a human's. Sticking your finger up a dog's bum. I've read this a few times. Not a good idea. Best way to deal with a dog attack is to try to move away slowly, sideways with your arms at your sides so that you're not threatening. Don't look at the eyes and don't smile, both are seen as a challenge. Don't run away, the dog will instinctively chase you. Get up high if you can, dogs can't climb very well. If shit hits the fan, do the opposite of looking unthreatening. Stand tall with your arms in the air and growl or roar. If there's something nearby, throw it at the dog to make it think twice. Wrap clothing around your arm to hand to the dog should it go in for a bite. You're pretty much guaranteed to be bit, so make it in a place that is less important and less likely to bleed out. Don't lose your footing or fall to the ground. You'll be toast. Don't pull away from the dog if it has bitten you, this will cause more damage. Once the dog has bitten you, it probably won't let go. Aim to kill or maim the dog. Fingers in the eyes are good. Jumping on the dog with all your body weight is better. If you break their ribs, they will probably give up. Staying away from aggressive dogs is your best bet. One thing you see a lot in older movies and even today is to conserve your water. If you're in a desert or if you lack water, never do that. If all you do is drink enough to stop being thirsty, the water won't reach necessary organs and parts of your body. Over time you'll be underhydrated and can suffer the effects of dehydration without ever feeling thirsty. The best usage of your water is to drink at a set interval even if you're not thirsty. Also, don't drink large amounts of water all at once, your body won't be used to it and more of it is going to be wasted via urination than if you space out reasonably sized swigs throughout the day. In the same vein, if you are ever hiking, working, or going to be outside in hot and dry climates, leave the shorts and tank top at home, and instead go for thin and loose-fitting long-sleeve shirts and loose-fitting pants. The biggest threat to your health is the sun. Avoid direct sun exposure whenever possible. Sunblock is solid enough for shorter trips, but you're going to be sweating off even the best of the stuff, so be sure to constantly reapply when directed to or if your skin gets too wet. Loose-fitted clothing also helps slow down how fast your sweat will evaporate into the air. Normally you want to have sweat evaporate, as that is how your body will lose the excess heat, as the sweat will draw heat away from your body and cool you down when wind hits you, but in this case you're losing sweat too fast for your body to transfer much if any heat, as the sun is hot enough to evaporate your sweat as soon as you start sweating. Limiting your evaporation also stops you from wasting a ton of water via constantly sweating, which is one of the biggest factors of water loss you should avoid. One myth I have heard was that moss only grows on the north side of trees. This of course is false. Not quite a survival myth, but interesting nonetheless. Paradoxical undressing, it is when you are hypothermic but still remove your clothes, explains why dead people are sometimes found naked out in snowy ranges. It is usually during the final stages of hypothermia, and the theory is that your blood vessels give up on constricting blood flow to your skin peripheries, so you suddenly feel super warm and remove all your clothes, which in turn causes you to die quicker. I watch a lot of fight videos on subs like street fights and fight porn, and one of two things pretty much always happens when someone gets knocked out. Either their friends come and try to pick them up, shake them, and slap them on the face to regain consciousness, or they are left there on their back while people film and laugh and say, "You got knocked the fuck out." These are both bad things to do because that person has just suffered possible serious trauma to their head, especially if they smacked it on the pavement when they came down, so shaking them awake is not a great thing to do. It might seem like leaving them be and recover on their own is a better idea, but it's not always, because they run the risk of choking on their tongue. The best thing to do is put them in the recovery position, which will make sure they don't have problems breathing until they regain their bearings, and if they don't after a while, it's a safe way for them to be until medical help comes. What is, in your opinion, the biggest flaw of the human body? Pretty much any autoimmune disease. The body can literally kill itself trying to protect itself. How close the food pipe and windpipe are. Allergies, or said another way, your immune system flipping the fuck out because you bumped into a peanut, dust mite, shrimp, cat, etc. The absolute randomness in its strengths versus vulnerabilities. A person can jump from a plane, have their parachute not open and survive the impact. Or you can slip in the shower, break your fucking neck, and die on the spot. Breathing hole equals food hole. Squids have it worse, food passes through their brains. But then again, I have never heard of a squid choking to death on a bite of bruschetta. There are many, but notably to me is how easily damaged the knee joints and the spine are. They next to impossible completely repair. Once damaged, they are never really right again. If I wipe the wrong direction, I could get an infection that could spread to my kidneys and kill me. My schlong is more like a schlort. How fragile the brain is. Teeth cannot repair themselves, I think. If a bone can heal back together, why the hell can't a tooth fill in a micro hole? In a natural state, teeth are pretty damn important. The fact that there's so many things you can do to the human body without killing it, but oh fuck, slept wrong and pinched a nerve, now I'm fucking paralyzed, didn't happen to me, but happened to a semi-distant family member a year ago. Put all these comments together and the human body seems like it's all just a piece of junk. Your brain replaying embarrassing moments over and over until you die. Cancer. Routine processes meant to repair the body create mistakes that in turn create tumors. Ectopic pregnancy. Ovaries are ovulating and doing their things. Eggs and whatnot. An egg decides enough is enough, and with the help of a hormone surge, wants out of that shit. Bigger and better things. So the egg literally punches out, and is supposed to go straight into the fallopian tubes, get fertilized while inside the tubes, and then plant in the uterus. You would think that the entrance of the fallopian tubes would connect right to the ovary? Nah, the opening of the fallopian tube has these little hairs, fimbriae, that are like wacky inflatable tube men in front of sketchy used car lots, and kind of guide the egg into the fallopian tube. Sometimes, the eggs don't feel like it going, and they venture off. And if fertilized, it's considered an ectopic pregnancy. It can plant anywhere in the abdominal cavity at that point. Most of the time, it will die because it has to plant in a well-vascularized region to be viable. Sometimes, it finds a good, bloody spot, and starts growing there. At that point it's essentially a tumor, and if it can eat enough into a blood vessel, it can rupture and bleed like shit. You would think that millions of years of evolution would create a fallopian tube that opens up right to the ovary, but that's not the case. Getting tired and needing to sleep. I could have done so much shit if I hadn't had to sleep. Though really, I probably would have just still not done anything. A quick tap to the testicles renders a man useless for at least a solid 5 minutes. Ears being so fragile and irreparable. You can control your bladder and sphincter. Why isn't there a mechanism to hold in your period? Not being able to hold our breath long, quick oxygen usage. That's something as important as the brain can stop functioning properly because of chemical imbalances. My personal greatest flaw in the human body has to be the immune system. Sure, I bet a lot of you have perfectly functional immune systems, but mine has decided my gastrointestinal tract is the enemy and must be eliminated at all costs. So basically whatever programming error led to my Crohn's disease, that's the biggest flaw. We're physiologically built to have sex with as many people as possible as soon as we hit puberty, but practically, socially, and psychologically, that's a really bad idea. The brain should be better secured in the head. Rattling the brain inside the skull can mess a person up, so if it was more secure it would be safer. Right now my shin is itchy for no goddamn reason. I think that's a pretty big flaw. That an amusement park doubles as a waste management center. Too many pain receptors on feet. Tumors. Organ ruptures caused by typical functions going wrong. Many things about pregnancy. Periods and ovarian cysts. Also, for women, that the urethra is so short and so close to the vagina and anus. Overstoring fat. I mean, I get hanging onto 20 pounds of the stuff just in case you need to tap into that energy, but at 50, 100, 300 pounds our bodies are still like, well, better still stock up. You never know if we'll find any food this upcoming year. Periods. Most other animals who have a menstruation cycle, or something like it, reabsorb the uterine lining rather than shedding it out and causing women to suffer from painful bleeding out of their vaginas for 5 to 6 days once a month. The amount of time it takes for us to grow and mature to a level where we are able to contribute and not be 100% dependent on our parents' family unit. Or the fact we have a useless organ that randomly ruptures and will kill you if you don't seek treatment for it. The pain and complications associated with giving birth. Giraffes can birth a whole tiny giraffe, hooves and all, and go about their day, yet women are still enduring massive amounts of pain and/or death during childbirth. It seems evolutionarily unproductive. The genitals aren't protected by any bones and are utterly fragile. Our lumbar and ass aren't really that great at holding us up, and this is why everyone has back problems regardless of whether they spend their lives working out, sitting in a chair, or in between. Evolutionarily, we should have spent more time in trees waiting for our muscles and such to develop more to support the greater half of our bodies being held upright without destroying the system that's meant to do exactly that. Water tube and breathing tube are same tube, sad face. Periods. Not even fucking rats have them. Wisdom teeth. They were useful when we used to have bigger jaws, but now they often cause pain and infection. The brain hardware has some compatibility issues with the software, i.e. patch random boners, aggression instinct, need for attention, staring at boobs and affection for shiny stuff, then we can talk. Self-awareness. Getting a boner, sexually excited for no reason, and often at the wrong time. Physician here. Testes only work when they are located outside the body at the junction of two limbs that converge, funneling many stray objects towards them. The low back. OMG, don't get me started. Clotting is so complex, it's no wonder it messes up so often. Sinuses. Why? And why do the holes leading into them need to be so small? The immune system is really bad at stopping things it needs to stop, and it's really good at damaging the body. We evolved on this planet, so why is the light of the sun too bright for us to tolerate? Our bodies like to store fat in our arteries. Sometimes, the baby's head won't fit through the pelvis. 8a, even by mammal standards, our newborns are remarkably ill-equipped. A newborn dog can crawl. A newborn horse can walk. We take a year to walk and almost 2 decades until we can fend for ourselves. I'll think of more. The brain. If you don't treat it right, it can fuck you up. Having you believing you need something when you know it's bad for you. Make you think horrible things and sometimes do horrible things. If you don't feed it positive information, you can grow up believing in evil, or ignorant things. And it controls everything. Definitely motion sickness. That thing our brains do where we walk into a room only to instantly forget why we went in there in the first place. Periods. As someone who never wants kids, I'm always reminded of how pointless the whole process is for me. Cranial and neck structure. One wrong bump of the head and you can suffer serious injury or death. The female reproductive system. The urethra is too close to the anus, vaginal opening. This can cause lots of UTIs if we aren't careful. Our hips are nearly too narrow to birth our babies. We can literally split our vagina into our anus while giving birth. Also the monthly bleeding thing, I'm fucking over it and I've still got a good 20 to 30 years of it left. It's a damned inconvenience on its best days and a nightmare of literal blood and pain on its worst days. Birth and pregnancy are way too tasking on a woman. Like, other animals can hunt, run, play, etc. literally hours before having to give birth, can get up right afterwards, don't have to take care of their kids for years, and their babies, you know, actually fit when they're being birthed. We literally can't even give birth right. Women used to die all the damn time before we made medical advances because our bodies are not fit to birth our own children, which biologically, is the entire fucking point of life. Too many teeth in too little space. Gets easily fucked up, and you keep randomly biting your tongue, lips, cheeks somehow. Compensation, an extreme example. Problem in one part of spine, muscles on the other side start to compensate. Pelvis becomes misaligned because back is not functioning symmetrically. Now, spinal problem has made the entire back spasm to support, walking hurts, probably more prone to headaches now, etc. Eyelashes and how they always find a way into my fucking eyes. Mine are so fucking long so they lodge themselves like 3 inches in my eye. Babies, in general. Most all other babies are born and are fairly self-sufficient or minimally dependent, with exceptions for certain animals I admit, but human babies are just crying poop machines for like approximately 3 years. Humans are the only mammals where the birth canal is too small to properly give birth to offspring. Childbirth isn't supposed to be painful, difficult, or time-consuming. However, due to humanity's evolution to bipedalism, the pelvis shrunk and reshaped itself for a standing position. This change allowed humanity to become more mobile and flexible, but at a serious cost. Where neovascularization, new blood vessel growth, of the eye takes place. You're diabetic and your retina isn't getting enough oxygen? Let's make new blood vessels on top of the retina and cause things like retinal detachments. You've got macular degeneration and need more oxygen too? Let's grow some under your retina and make you need shots in your eye. The front of the eye also can develop new blood vessels, but this commonly takes place in the angle, the drainage area for aqueous. This leads to extremely high eye pressure and glaucoma. Some of this has already been stated, but cancer, aneurysms, mental illness, and menstrual cycles.
High school teachers of Reddit, what is the one thing that you want your students to know that you'd never tell them in person? When you think you are being genius by getting me to talk about random things at the beginning of class instead of teaching, I'm really allowing it to happen. See, I don't have enough planned to cover a full class. I knew you were cheating, so I gave you a test with the answers in a different order for the rest of the semester. You clearly weren't very bright to figure it out. And yes, I am that spiteful. It was easier than reporting the cheating. One day you're going to come across people who are not being paid to tolerate you, and all of a sudden life is going to become considerably more difficult. I encourage my worst kids as much or more than my favorites because I don't want them back in my class next year. If you're jacking off in class, we can tell that we have much better hearing than you assume. We just choose our battles as it pertains to inappropriate comments. And sometimes I pretend not to see that thing you did just because I too found it humorous, and speaking to you about it would only result in me cracking up. Edit. Well, this really blew up. I am barely seeing people's reactions to it. I appreciate all the responses. A lot of great comments. And I can definitely share stories for those interested. Haha. If you're going to eat in class, stop staring at me while you're doing it. You're ratting yourself out. Edit. Thank you everyone for sharing your stories. I literally laughed my ass off a couple of times. I've already answered this in a comment. The reason the students aren't allowed to eat is because those are the school rules. I have no say in the matter and I won't jeopardize my job for it, especially because it's my first year working there and my supervisor pops in once in a while. Secondly, I do allow water, no drinks allowed either, and I let them finish their meal outside before the second bell goes off. Sometimes they even offer me some, and if they are truly hungry, they know this. They can just ask me in the beginning of class to eat outside. I also don't punish them when I catch them. I just politely ask them to put it away and have a laugh. Telling them angrily will just piss them off. See, I'm not a complete monster. I can smell you. Everyone can. Please, for the love of God, use deodorant. Edit. Thanks for the gold, silver. To the people asking why I wouldn't say this to a student, the answer is twofold. 1. Puberty is a smelly ordeal, and a lot of the kids can't help it. 2. Because God forbid it's not their fault, infection, a cultural thing. or improper washing of clothes. You don't want to alienate that student forever. That it's just as weird for me as it is for you when we bump into each other in public. Edit. Instead of responding to all, I'll tell my story here. I went on vacation with my then GF, and bumped into a student 3 states over. We both kind of shook our heads no at each other, and kept walking, silently agreeing to not address it. I saw this same student again 2 months later, during the summer, at a concert where they were underage drinking. We just shook our heads at one another again, keeping that same silent agreement. I saw this same student 4 more times during the summer entirely by accident. It was never discussed. You know what, Jono? You're a little cunt. Gold. Weiss. Thanks guys. I don't care that you came to class stoned. Just stop interrupting class. And for God's sake, don't touch any power tools while you're stoned. The weed smell doesn't magically disappear between the parking lot and my classroom. Yes, I do have favorite students. No, I won't tell you who they are because that would discourage you. But yes, they're probably who you imagine them to be. If I didn't think you would abuse the situation, I would really enjoy being more human and casual around you. I think you're a fun person to be around. My gamer tag. I usually say there's a policy against it, but there isn't. I just don't want to play Overwatch or whatever with a bunch of relatively good kids who turn into total monsters when they play video games. If I tell the cool ones, it'll get around. I'd imagine the hot teachers are very aware of the students' perception of them. Edit. Obligatory thank you to all those hot teachers who gave me the subject matter to get my most upvoted comment, post as well as my first Reddit silver. Neat. I can definitely hear the horrible things you are saying. Yes, I see that you are on the other side of the room. I may be old to you, but I am certainly not deaf. Also, that teenage boy is definitely going to buy you a Big Mac in exchange for oral sex. 100 out 100 times. I'm a bus driver. Sit the fuck down, you will die if I crash. Please stop jiggling in the classrooms, that's what the bathrooms are for. I hate the texts as much as you do, but everyone just shrugs when I suggest changing them up. I'm sorry they made us keep that awful after book on the list. I genuinely offered to buy them all back from students so I could burn the waste of time that they are. I actually teach middle school rather than high school, but I'll play. I love them a whole bunch. I do actually tell them this, that's not the thing, but goddamn every single middle schooler is an asshole. Like, even the best ones. They're all assholes. You can't help it at that age. Part of the process of being a good middle school teacher is accepting the assholishness and figuring out ways to work with it. Don't worry, guys, your peers, and you, will stop being assholes soon. Most of you, anyway. Also, all the things you think your parents and teachers don't know about, we do. We've done it all. We just would prefer not to think about you doing it because you're much too young. Edit. So you weren't an asshole when you were in middle school. You're the exception. Congratulations, you special person. You win the trophy. I've taught more than 700 kids in my career, but I didn't teach you, so I don't know. A lot of us probably drink, smoke, sleep around, etc. more than you do, and hearing you talking about it and trying to hide it as if it's something we wouldn't know about is richly ironic. A few off the top of my head. Just because I like you as a person doesn't mean that I won't fail you. Being smart isn't a justification for being lazy, and I can't pass someone that never hands in work. I moved you away from your friends because they were taking you down with them. You have a real future in sports, but you need to pass my class to play them. Your friends were making you fail, and if you don't get to play volleyball, I don't know what kind of future you have in front of you. I wish that the positivity that you get in my class could follow you home. I've met your parents and they are a nightmare. I do my best to encourage you here, but I know that, some days, that just might not be enough. I have never and will never find a student intimidating. That's why I laughed at you when you asked me if I knew who your father was. Yeah, he's the manager of a car dealership. That means nothing to nobody. I had a kid throw a desk at me and, while it scared me in the moment, it didn't make me fear him. One day, you will meet someone who has real power, and I just wish that I could be there to see it. I can see who you have a crush on in the classroom. You're unique. You're not special. Set your goals high, but understand that if you change your goals to needs, you will have a lifetime of disappointment. If your parents email a teacher and argue with them, The whole staff knows, at least at my school, that my students are the reason why I am second guessing having my own kids. One of the most valuable lessons I can teach you is to fake looking busy. If we're supposed to be working on an assignment or reading or whatever, and you see me coming your way, at the least have a piece of paper on your desk and a pen in your hand and some shit on your paper, and then I won't bother you. If you have nothing going on and can't even be bothered to make it look like you're trying, I'm heading your way. This lesson will be invaluable with eventual bosses someday. That I lied to you when I said I was 40. I was actually only 21 and I was only a couple of years older than you. I've seen you at the club and I've seen you partying. Furthermore, I have run into you in public way more times than you realize, but half the time I run away, the other half the time you catch me before I can. Also, when I was at the mall, the guy you pointed to and asked me if he was my boyfriend was just a random Tinder date I just met. He was definitely not my boyfriend. Edit. Since I keep getting asked how I was able to pull off looking almost twice my age, here goes. First of all, I had older teachers and the administration backing up my story because they were afraid that if the student knew how young I was they wouldn't respect me. Second of all, I had a very serious reserved attitude during the job. No smiling, very blunt, no nonsense, only very rarely did I crack the occasional joke. Lastly, I did dress frumpier than I normally would in dark, formless colors and sometimes I even gave myself a bit of dark circles under my eyes with black eyeshadow. Of course some students still questioned it, but when you have all your authority figures telling you one thing, it's rather difficult to not believe it. Edit 2. I taught in Thailand, meaning the students weren't in close proximity to foreigners all too frequently so they didn't have much perception of what a 40-year-old foreigner should look like. I also look very racially ambiguous. My racial ambiguity also helped me out here. White people age very differently than black people who age differently than Asians, etc. I love these posts because the comments are generally well formatted. Thanks, teachers. Your sense of entitlement is most likely acquired from your upbringing, so parent-teacher conferences to discuss your grades aren't going to do shit when the parents just blame us, despite you putting in little to zero effort. If I know your name by the third day of a new school year, that means you're probably an asshole. To my freshmen, yes, I always know when you didn't do my math because you stayed up late playing Fortnite. You added me as a friend on Epic so I see that. Also the amount of homework not done in lower grades when new battle passes come out is so coincidental. To a specific freshman, I support your desire to become a streamer, but editing videos should not keep you away from your homework for a whole week and your friends always rat you out when you stay home. Skip to edit those videos. To all high schoolers I teach, you're dumb, but I do love you guys. I'm not stupid and while I know you cheat on your homework, I don't care since it's only worth 10% of your grade and you're foregoing the practice you can get before the test. To the 6th graders I teach math to, dear Lord you make me cringe so hard I have to take ibuprofen some days. I have so much more, but my lunch break is almost over.
People who do 30 miles per hour on an on-ramp to a highway where the speed limit is 65 miles per hour. Why do you do this? Because I'm a fucking idiot. At least you're honest smiley face. Honest isn't the word I'd use. I see you followed my mother-in-law onto the freeway. She gets on the on-ramp, sees a car on the freeway, a half-mile back or so, and panics and hits the brakes. Seriously, I don't know how she hasn't caused a wreck or 12 by now. My mother-in-law stopped on the freeway once to look at a map. Christ. I feel like the answer is that a lot of poor drivers assume that in all situations slower equals safer when really not. Merging at similar speeds to the roadway being entered is incredibly dangerous. When I took driver's education they specifically mentioned things like merging at speed, but I don't know if that's the same for everyone. The exact same people who believe the only response to any unexpected event is to stand on their brakes as hard as possible and come to a complete stop in the middle of the road. My dad does this, and I asked him why he does it. Straight up, I want to get good gas mileage, and you don't get good mileage by accelerating hard, so there is one old man's answers. I assume they have a birthday cake in the car and don't want to muss the frosting. That's a much brighter perspective than most of us have of these people. Next time you want to flip somebody off on the road, give them a thumbs down instead. It's the "I'm not angry, I'm disappointed" of driving. It changes your frame of reference from rage at how fucking dumb that guy was to an honest piece of feedback on their maneuver. Merging into traffic is scary, so you gotta make sure the speed differential between you and the traffic is as high as humanly possible. This validates the belief that merging into traffic is scary, so you better go even slower next time. Oh wow, those cars are going awfully fast. I better stop on the on-ramp until there aren't any more cars. That's the smartest and safest option. Because it's illegal to pass on the shoulder, and an idiot is doing 30 mph in front of me. Alternately, I know the guy in front of me is going 60 now, but he was going 30 for most of the ramp, and my car does not accelerate as quickly as his. I hang way back the first half of the ramp so I have room to get up to speed even if the idiot in front of me won't. This is a necessary strategy in Michigan, and most places. My local section of highway has an on-ramp that turns into a quarter-mile exit lane for the next exit. A lot of people get on the highway with the intention of taking the next exit, and simply stay in the lane, never getting up to highway speed because they're getting back off a quarter-mile up the road. This is always infuriating because I never take that exit, and am forced to sit behind them while they cruise at 45 miles per hour up to their exit while I'm trying to merge left with cars flying by at 70 miles per hour. I see people do this all the time in Dallas. They're white-knuckling it because they shouldn't be on the freeway in the first place, but think they're smart because they're passing two lights on the feeder and exit half a mile down. I'm in the heart medication business. Just trying to create conditions that will lead to new clients, i.e. those behind me. Taking one for the team I see. Me too. I work in proctology. DC has speed cameras on the entrances and exits to 395 ramp speed limit as 35, interstate as 55. Needless to say, people get hit a lot by these cameras and it makes merging, often from left exits, a nightmare. Sounds like yet another reason to avoid DC. Based on my experience in DC, I'm surprised anyone is ever able to drive above 35 anyway because of the traffic. Lots of people have poor spatial recognition while driving. Lots of people also should have been taken off the road a decade ago. Spatial, or special. This Mirage's double-digit horsepower won't give me any more. Even the teeniest of little cars have enough get up and go to merger properly, even on clover leafs, if the driver is paying attention. Not classic cars. My MG takes over a quarter mile to reach 60 from a standstill. I had a lady tell me once that she takes it slow and easy with on ramps because professionals say it saves gas. She didn't understand my logic when I told her that when she does this, she causes accidents and traffic jams. Thus she may save a few drops, but overall she fucks everything up. The infuriating part being that it does not save gas. Because they have a death wish. To anyone who does this, don't merge into the highway doing residential road speed. You're causing so many problems for everyone around you and it's dangerous. If you're going to go that damn slow, stay on the feeder. Follow-up PSA, and this may come as a bit of a shock to some of you, but the far left lane on the interstate is not your personal highway. If you aren't actively passing cars, you shouldn't be in it at all, let alone camped over there, oblivious to the world around you. In the UK we call these slip roads. I drive a lot in my job and people who do this are usually being cautious and looking to avoid collisions, but in reality it is bloody dangerous and increasing the chance of a very serious accident. In the highway code it explicitly says check the traffic on the motorway and match your speed to fit safely into the traffic flow in the left-hand lane, so the speed of your vehicle and the vehicles on the carriageway need to be matched. It's not rocket science, the danger comes from differing speeds. If the cars are moving at 70, crawling in at 30 puts you, the fast-moving vehicles on the carriageway, and the drivers behind you being forced to drive at your speed, at far greater risk than is necessary. My stepmom actually got a ticket for doing 45 in a 55 mph zone. She was going onto I-96 eastbound for 1 mile and didn't feel like accelerating for just 1 mile. So, the cop gave her a ticket for impeding traffic. She's probably slowly merging into traffic somewhere right now. If you see her, wave hi to her. I'm glad to hear cops actually ticket people for going too slow. Now if only they'd give more tickets to people who sit in the left lane because they feel like it. Also, people who drive at dusk or during rainstorms without headlights on, why? Is this the curve on the ramp or the straightaway? If it's the curve, it's because I don't want to slide into the ditch. If it's the straightaway, I'm stomping on the gas. I understand on a curved one. But for straight ones, then you just cause traffic jams. I think there should be a special hell for those assholes who decide to move into the far right lane at the exact spot where oncoming cars are trying to merge in. You check over your left shoulder and see a nice gap to move in, then all of a sudden, nope, some dumbass decides that's the time to move into the slow lane. Why? Seriously, fuck those people. This is infuriatingly common in Illinois for some reason. People here just don't fucking accelerate until they're on the highway, never before. Never saw this occurrence with this much frequency until I moved here. The ramp is for accelerating up to highway speed, damn it. Every state has the worst drivers anywhere. And they're all from other states. For the same reason I have to slow down early and make people angry when exiting, my town simply doesn't make the on and off ramps nearly as long as they need to be for my shitty 4-cylinder to get up to safe merging speed, or down to safe exiting speed. There's accidents all the time because of this. Are these the same people that do 50 in a 65, until you attempt to pass them, and then they go as fast as necessary to prevent you from passing them? Until you concede and get back behind them, where they gradually slow back down towards 50 miles per hour? The worst is when they flip you off or honk, throw hands up etc. when you have the nerve to not slam on your brakes to let them merge. Keep up or shut up. My car has crappy acceleration and the on-ramps in my city are way too short. I'm trying. I hate short ramps. Where I'm living the ramps are at most 30 meters long and 90% of the time you come to a complete stop before you can merge. You basically drive towards them already anticipating a full stop. It's a big mess, but I got used to it quickly. Then again, the legal speed limit on this island is 60 kilometers per hour, approximately 37 miles per hour. I was at the DMV and saw two people holding a very frail old man up, one on each arm, to the Viewmaster style eye test so he could get his license. I have another part to this. People who have the entire highway to yourself and you see a car merging as fast as it can, why do you refuse to get over? I understand if you can't get over because of other vehicles, but not when the other lane is clear. All bad driving boils down to a combination of incompetence, obliviousness, and narcissism. The person in front of me has neglected the rightmost pedal. What is it with Toyota Prius or any Subaru driver that generally seem to be self-designated highway speed monitors, leading parades of frustrated drivers in the passing lane? I am always stuck passing on the right and I give them a glance as they are driving along oblivious. I loathe those people. I recently got a new car, but before that my car, 02 Honda Accord, physically couldn't speed up fast enough to get above approximately 50 until I was already on the highway. This is my answer. I'm flooring it while sending silent apologies to those poor souls trapped behind me. I mean, you could live in my part of PA where we have stop signs at the end of an on-ramp, you know, right at the merge point, smh. That wasn't even about merging. The red car just didn't know what fucking lane he was in. I feel like the real reason for a lot of people are suggested speed signs on ramps. They don't notice the sign doesn't say maximum and don't remember back to driving school where they would have been told those were mainly for semi-trucks. So they think there's this speed limit while on the ramp and they can't speed up until they actually get on the highway. I find the same thing on off-ramps for highways. A lot of people slam the brakes on when they reach the suggested speed sign rather than allowing the car to slow by just taking their foot off the accelerator. You might be onto something here. I've always wanted those speed radar signs that say slow down. If you're going too fast, put it on ramps but program them to say speed up. Also sign that comes on in bumper traffic that says merge here. Because most of the ramps in my area are actually very sharp turns. Some of these rims even have signs stating to go no faster than 15 to 25 miles per hour, including some areas where the highway speed is 70 miles per hour. That's what I'm saying. I've dealt with mostly curved on ramps. It's hard to go fast when you feel like you'll flip your vehicle. A lack of confidence and skill behind the wheel. What are some guy secrets girls don't know about? I had a girl tell me that my haircut looked nice. I've kept that same haircut for 4 years since then. Sometimes we use the stream of our pee to try and clean poop stains on the bottom of toilet bowls. Just because we're in the shower for an abnormally long time doesn't mean we're jerking off. Guys like to have long hot showers too, ya know. Yeah, it's freezing AF outside the shower. It's not that we can't take hints, we are just afraid of looking too far into something. If someone is flirting with me, I have the dilemma of, is she actually into me or is this just how her personality is? Exactly, take the hint and it was what we thought. Good, flirting successful. Take the hint and I was wrong, relation with her ruined, entire group shames me until the heat death of the universe. Edit, I didn't meant my friends shame me but other people more close to her will for sure. Boners don't automatically mean arousal. That will never be said enough. Nice try BuzzFeed. If you have a son, don't rush into his room and demand that he get up immediately to do chores or some shit. He definitely has morning wood and would appreciate not needing to hide a boner from his mom. Give him like 5 minutes. If you want something to happen between us, you gotta meet us halfway. If we're not making a move, we are probably doing our best to not fuck it up. When girls don't do anything and expect us to just take charge, like I got no problem long as I have some form of acknowledgement that you are down for that. Nothing equals no for me. I grew sick of guy standards when dating. Sister set me up with the number of a friend of a friend. We text off and on for a week, went on a simple coffee date, but I wasn't feeling it so I never pursued anything after that. Apparently she was upset and wanted to hear from me again, and my sister told me what I did was rude. Why? I had no interest in seeing her again, was already 3 dates in with another girl I liked more and who's now my wife, so clearly I made the right call. But what bugged me the most? She had my number as well and could have texted me herself if she was interested in a second date. That's not how it works. You're the guy, you text or call her, right, which I didn't do, which should tell you and her how I felt the date went. I like hugs. You monster, I bet you like hand holding too. We can't move our penis without closing our butthole. You just made men all over the internet clench their ass. That's power you can't buy. We don't get the hint. Saying, I almost broke my neck in the driveway, is not the same as asking us to shovel it. In my mind I'm thinking thanks for the heads up, I'll be careful. If our balls are itchy, we don't actually scratch them. Instead we rely on clever little pinches to the nutsack. In public sure, but when I get home from a long day, I'll stand in the bathroom and rake my junk for like 5 straight minutes. Some days, it's my favorite part of the day. I'm not staring at you, I'm zoned out thinking about how I'd start a brewery in medieval England whilst my eyes just happen to be facing your direction. Guys also like to be walked up to and asked out. My current girlfriend, soon-to-be fiancé, asked me out. We worked at the same company, and she just came up to me and said, "Hey Justy Burger, I think you and I should go get dinner tonight." I asked her who else was going, and she said, "I think it'd be nice if it was just you and me." So yay, that was pretty cool. As a favor, I worked on a girl's car one time and got pretty dirty. Afterwards, she asked me if I wanted to come inside and take a shower as a primal one. I can't understand it, I just do it. Well, slap my tits and make me a man, because a tall women too enjoy touching the door frame. P shivers. I've never felt so connected to my fellow man than knowing every guy in the world understands these 2 words. Only weirdos choose to piss in the urinal next to you when there are plenty of open urinals along the wall. Also, if we have to use the toilet to piss, we tend to piss on the side of the bowl to make less noise. Whisper piss. Adjusting your dick upwards towards your belly button when having a boner in public in order to hide it. Having a boner doesn't always mean you're turned on. And as it slowly becomes flaccid you worry about it slipping loose and going on display. The daily struggle of any teenager. When you ask what are we thinking about and we say nothing, we really mean it. Never underestimate a guy's ability to not being thinking about stuff at all times. When people come crying to us, our first inclination is to fix the problem. Since this is often not possible, lead with something along the lines of, "Can I vent for a minute?" or anything that signals to us this is just a time for active listening, rather than a problem-solving session. Your chances of getting what you want out of us are infinitely higher if you tell us directly. I can vouch for this. I was upset with myself for not picking up what I thought were clear hints, when he responded frustrated with, "I don't understand hints, just tell me what you want, woman." He really helped me communicate better. I don't know why we grow up thinking we can't directly ask for things. A lot of guys answering right now are on the toilet enjoying some quality time with Reddit. The bathroom is an experience for many men. Morning wood can be cool for wake-up sex, not cool if you have to pee. We have to do all sorts of acrobatic maneuvers to pee. I myself like to do the Michael. Compliments will last for weeks, months, even years. Guys are crazy for a simple, "you're hot," or "you're really handsome," or something with their personality or looks. I still think about the cute girl at that takeout place telling me I have nice eyes. That was a year ago. No, I'm not lonely. Why do you ask? I've been on the toilet for 30 minutes but I am actually pooping. Sometimes we like to be the little spoon. If the big spoon is smaller than you, it's called a jetpack. I spent an hour or so this morning reading about fighter jets, then dozed off and dreamt that I was a pilot. Then I remembered a cool folder I had once with a T-Rex flying a fighter jet on it. I laughed out loud at that memory, and when my wife asked why, I said not to worry about it. Then I laughed again because I thought about a T-Rex trying to fit in at flight school. My wife and I are now fighting because she thinks I'm hiding something. We're really not that mysterious. Sometimes we're just laughing at a T-Rex trying to take notes on wind speed and lift. The good old pinch and roll technique. We provide a valuable toilet cleaning service which is underappreciated by peeing off any stains that might happen to be clinging onto the inside of the bowl. If you want something, just ask us. We are task-orientated. Saying, "I'm cold," won't always register to us as, "I need a blanket, can you get me one?" And if you're mad at us for something, just tell us and we will probably stop doing that thing if it's realistic. Don't just fester in your anger for days and wonder why we don't care. We do, we just have no idea what you want us to do. If we have a goofy hobby and you take interest in it, even the slightest, we love it. I'm a big gamer and my wife, who also games but not the same ones I play, will often watch what I'm doing, ask about the game, and generally take an interest. Her saying, "Oh, are you looking forward to Anthem?" is really cool and I appreciate her interest. It's be so easy for her to pay no attention, and her doing so makes a big difference. No matter how you shake and dance, the last 2 drops go in your pants. We really do think your hair is good. It looked good before and after you got a haircut. It looked good curly and it looked good straight. It looked good when you woke up and when you made it. As long as it's shaped like the hair we gave girls on stick figures when we were 5 years old, we think it looks good. When we want to be alone, it's not that we don't want to be around you, it's that we don't want to be around anyone for a bit. Sometimes we masturbate just to pass the time. It is not sexual at all. It is a bit like making a coffee to pass 10 minutes. If you play video games hours on end, a solid wank can revitalize your body and keep it going. This ain't a suggestion, it's a prescription. Men have just as many issues with mental health, depression, anxiety, body issues. Please recognize this. I hate living in a world where it's not socially acceptable for men to talk about these things. A lot of guys would talk about their experiences and issues but don't feel like they can. I feel like we just sort of ignore the issue, and guys that have mental health issues are sort of looked down upon because men are all supposed to be outgoing and confident. Maybe you have a guy friend who doesn't get out a lot, maybe he's acting strange or isn't totally there, this might be why. How often we fantasize about saving the day from terrorist attack or something. Our erections don't always mean we're horny. It just goes up sometimes and I'm here like, what is it, boy? You see something? I'm secretly an emotional wreck, I just hide it. As an older man, we don't expect you to look like a supermodel as we age together. Yes, at times I do see you as I did 30 years ago and every wrinkle and flaw disappears. Yes, there are times I see every wrinkle and flaw and know how you got every one of them. They are beautiful too. We're just as insecure as anyone. Teachers of Reddit, what are some positive trends you have noticed in today's youth? As a general rule, they are more understanding and forgiving if somebody is different. Don't get me wrong, some of them are still dicks to those kids, but it is a shrinking minority. My GF is a teacher and she is amazed at how uncool drinking and driving is. Kids are like, "That's stupid, you will kill someone." They literally make fun of kids who do it. In my day everyone drove drunk. Very positive change. High school teacher here, the most admirable quality of the rising generation is their ability to take anything, and I mean anything, and turn it into a meme. And quickly, my God. I am a teacher at a high school in Missouri. All of the stereotypes you see in rural high schools are still prevalent. However, almost every group works harder academically. It is no longer cool to get Fs and fail. Even country boys who will never leave the farm or go to college care about getting passing grades. 600 plus students in our HS, by the way. Kindness. My college students are kind and supportive to one another most of the time. Why be mean to each other when we're all getting fucked? Only thing stressful is parking and the classes we absolutely don't study for. Either way I'm chillin' my biscotto. I asked my wife, primary teacher, and she says empathy and adaptability are the two traits she has seen dramatically improve over her last 15 years. Kids seem to be better at putting themselves in another's position and understanding their situation. Also, they seem to be much more flexible with changes whether in the classroom or the outside world. Funnily enough, I feel like the internet and global culture contribute to this a lot. Granted, I think the internet can be a really bad influence on young kids, but it really removes the bubble a lot of us has when we were younger. Having a global perspective and understanding how different people are everywhere around the world also helps put our small interpersonal differences in perspective as well. I feel like that does a lot for the kids of today, though they probably don't even realize it. Spouse to a high school teacher, she had to say, they were born into the internet and social media, it is not something they had to learn. Also as a result of which, they are also more self-reliant with research. And most importantly, contrary to the largest complaints, today's kids are extremely hard-working, and are less judgy of nerds, less judgmental in general. My little sister, who is just 25, is a high school teacher and she says that being the smart, well-rounded kid is the cool thing. Being the asshole slacker isn't cool at all. The majority of my students are in the 18 to 22 age range. I'm 37, for reference. Students are far kinder than they ever were when I was a student. They go out of their way to help each other, and they are much less judgmental than my cohort was. For the most part, they are really polite and respectful. I know a lot of professors deal with problems from cell phones, but I find that if I tell them to use their phones respectfully and only for class purposes, they do. The only real problem I seem to have with this cohort is the constant headphone wearing, but I think that's a battle I'm just going to lose. They are generally independent and self-reflective. When I first started teaching I thought I had simply lucked out getting students who were consistently bright, engaged and curious, but having now taught at 3 different universities on 2 different continents, it seems to be a general trend across universities. They are also, as noted elsewhere, generally kind and empathetic, and both my male and female students are usually pretty emotionally mature. The 8-year-olds I teach really make a huge deal about plastic. We watched the Blue Planet 2 episode with them and since then they have been so mindful and really want to protect the oceans. My daycare kids are much more likely to wash their hands than my generation was when we were their age lol. Kids are so much neater now, once they're about 8 or 9. They pick up after themselves, are sort of organized, and don't litter when they can help it. I've even had kids at work that couldn't reach the trash can so they'll come up to the counter and hand me their trash. Kids are openly kind and loving regarding their parents. I had a tough football player day in class once. I love my mom, she's my best friend. I see the old, my parents suick mentality falling by the wayside recently. I wonder if this has more to do with kids who grew up with shitty parents and don't want to repeat their mistakes. My parents were in no way shitty but I really wish they handled a few situations differently. I always make mental notes of what to do or not do if I ever had a kid. Girls ask boys out more often. Boys are starting to expect girls to be more frank and straightforward with what they want more often. Other than that, just like my colleagues. Generally kinder, more generous, understanding of differences, mature. On the other hand, I find them generally more sad, maybe more cynical, and overall quite happily pessimistic toward the future, a kind of we're so fucked vibe I feel sometimes. I worried about my son, who has mild autism, for the first 10 years of his life. I kept telling him that middle school would be hard, kids would tease him, etc., and that high school would be even harder in the same respect. 15 years ago, I would have been right. Fast forward to now, and I'm constantly amazed and grateful for how well he is treated. Even the jock kids and big snotty idiot kids who would make perfect bullies are inclusive, kind, and even sometimes protective of my son. I've told all of them how appreciative I am, and even got a few of them Christmas presents this year. Love those kids. Edit, a few people are doing the math. My son is 11 and I'm 30. He's not in high school yet, but he will be there with the same kids he is in middle school with, so I feel confident about it. They really get each other. As much as they diss on each other, joke around, and yes, get to the point of blows, they can usually put issues aside. sometimes to a fault, but overall they are pretty understanding of each other. Coming from a senior in high school, this is the most accurate answer here. We are complete dicks to our friends and nice to strangers. Not a teacher, but I've noticed that a lot of children seem to be questioning authority rather than flat out rebelling. I wonder if that's actually any different, or if we as the adult generation are now more accepting of questions, so we treat kids with more respect and actually answer questions? So instead of calling it rebellion, we call it curiosity? The high school students I work with today seem significantly more emotionally intelligent than those of my generation, especially the young men. They are aware of their own feelings and are better at separating their feelings from fact, i.e., they're more likely to say, I'm feeling X, Y, Z, negative emotion right now, than, this teacher just hates me, what a bitch. They're also better at seeing and accommodating emotions in other people. There's more awareness of and sympathy for mental health issues. Here's an illustration. The other day, some of the students I coach were conversing and one young man asked how frequently they had a good cry. They all answered. And he said, I think I'm overdue for a good cry, and his peers started suggesting good movies to induce tears. It was an utterly shocking scene for me. Great, but nothing I would ever have expected. Kids can be stunningly introspective and empathetic when you ask them to talk about their interpersonal issues. There's a real effort to perspective taking that goes beyond what I encountered at that age. Also, the students I work with have some selection bias, to be fair, but the ones I encounter as a whole care a lot about current events. It's like it's actually cool to know and care what's going on, and it's uncool not to. This is very different from how I grew up. I think a lot of them would agree with the statement, being smart is cool and learning new things is fun, which seems simplistic, but isn't true to everyone. I think it's related to the pressure to get into college. This pressure to be more well-rounded in your interests is a double-edged sword. Kids get social capital from being exposed to different ideas and cultivating interests, but it's also a difficult race to model yourself into some ideal. As someone who is a youth of today, I've literally never seen bullying where I live. People are kind of dicks sometimes but not bullies. I can agree. As I got older I noticed that kids don't bully as much. They just leave the people they don't like alone. When I was in high I didn't notice any bullying. All my issues had to do with me willingly being around the wrong people. Edit, I'm not saying bullying doesn't exist anymore, I'm just saying that it's decreasing. I was bullied until high school, so I know what the different forms of bullying can be like. I was excluded and made fun of. When I got to high school, people just left people like me and others alone. Students are not afraid to just be nice to each other. I teach elementary art and it is so nice when a kid who is pretty unskilled in art show another kid their work, and instead of getting laughed at like when I was in school, kids are just so sweet and will say things like, wow, I really love that. I hear kids telling other kids, I think your work is beautiful, or I really like your ideas, and I just think of when I was in art kids made fun of my work. In general I really don't see kids being bullies as much as they were when I was a kid. I went to school in a really nice district too with few problems, but I was bullied. Kids here have a much worse home life than kids at my old school, and while they could choose to take it out on others, they don't. Kids help each other too. They know if a student is special and will try to help that student out. They'll offer to walk them to the bathroom, or help them with their drawing, or very politely tell them to be careful with things. I'm 27 now, but in elementary, one of my best friends was kid with Down syndrome. His name is Sean. Super cool guy and the nicest person you would ever meet. I introduced him to my other friends and he just clicked with our group. We had sleepovers and his parents always thanked us for including him, and I remember my friend, Ian, who was the most hesitant to befriend Sean, telling the parents, Sean is one of us, no worries. I remember the dad getting emotional after that. Anyways, Sean is now married, we were his groomsmen, with a diploma and works at Walmart as a greeter. Love that guy. This thread is dope, it's given me hella hope for the future. This is definitely the most wholesome thread I've read in a while. Retired high school teacher here. While kids are reading fewer books than they used to, sources, they're in many ways healthier than the recent past, source, both nutritionally and emotionally. On top of that, one heartwarming data point I love is that dads are more involved in their children's lives than ever, source. Are they reading less as in less books? Because I think that if you count reading things online or in video games, that kids these days are likely reading a lot more than kids were when I was one of them. Your first source does seem to be talking about books specifically. America's youth has a renewed interest in flossing. Dentists rejoice. There has been a large influx of Fortnite dancing and the saying of oof. What's a random statistic about yourself you'd love to know, but never will? How many times I've walked past someone that I've walked past before without realizing. I actually think this a lot. When I started at university, I started dating this guy who was from a city about 200 miles from my home. Uni was in the middle. One day we were sitting around with a big group talking about where we were on 9/11. This was about 6 months after, and my boyfriend said he was at this theme park which is nowhere near his home. I couldn't believe it, because I was there that day too. It made me wonder how many times I am next to someone who in later life I will know well, but also how many times I see the same strangers without knowing. When I met my husband and we got to know each other, we realized we had been in the same place so many times around the same time and never met, until we did. ETA, I didn't expect this to pick up so much, so here is some backstory. It's like we were supposed to meet the entire time. When we met, I was in a relationship where I was raising his son, running his company, taking his online classes, and then he insisted on me getting an overnight job as well. That's where I ended up meeting my current husband. I was in a relationship with a man for 7 years and he pushed me right into the arms of my husband. If that wasn't all meant to be, crazy how things work out. I'd like to know how many photos I'm in the background of. How many times my advice has actually helped the person asking. How often people thought of me. What percentage of my own history have I forgotten? To expand a bit, I do remember the games I played when I was young, just not any real-life events before around 18 to 21, including family vacations, birthdays, you name it. My personal theory is that it may have something to do with never thinking about the past, only current problems or topics of interest in future scenarios. You know how you have to repeat something again and again to learn and remember it? That might be necessary for autobiographic memory as well. How many people have ever had a crush on me? Edit, I can't believe it, thanks everyone, this is epic. How many people have gotten off thinking of me? I'd like to see a complete list of all the songs I've had stuck in my head and the amount of time each one was stuck there. How many times I've made someone happy. I think it'd be cool to know how many people's lives I've significantly impacted. Positive or negative. I can think of a few people who have influenced my life who probably have no idea that I still think about them from time to time. How many times have I nearly died without realizing? How many other people I have killed in video games? How many people would miss me if I disappeared out of their life? How many miles my arms have moved while drumming? How many serial killers I have seen without knowing? How many people have laughed out loud to posts of mine on Reddit? The edits are just me adding more things to the list. I'm personally sure about 2. I remember speaking to this 14 to 16-year-old. He seemed okay. His voice was quiet and spoke a bit higher pitched for his age, which at first I found weird. He ended up killing his parents after lifelong abuse he told me about, sexual assault by both parents, babysitter, friend of his father's, physical abuse by parents, bullying at school, you name it. He even showed me cigarette stump burns he had on his arms, some were new, some were scars from his childhood. I knew him because I went to the same holiday place as him and we became friends there. He ended up not coming back one summer and checked his Facebook. He gave me it the last time I saw him. He went off to kill both parents and attempted to kill his babysitter, but he got away with only a scar down his arm and a small one on his neck. The lad ended up killing himself after posting something along the lines of "fuck this world" and "fuck the Child Protector Services for not doing anything sooner." Yes, he always told me about how he tried contacting them, but his parents would do the bare minimum to keep him and to make themselves look good. He had no proof of being raped as he was forced to shower and burn the clothes also. Honestly, don't hate him for killing his parents. I do miss him and he was a genuinely nice kid. He loved animals, playing in the park and push kids on swings if the parents were busy, and even took dogs for walks for the elderly people at the park. He only ever wanted to kill those 3 people and there was no signs of him wanting to go after his ex-bullies. I found out years later that some people, especially males who speak in a quieter, higher-pitched voice, suffered from a lot of sexual abuse, rape etc. as a kid, so that was fun to learn. Miss him a lot, but he would have been put in jail for life, so I don't really blame him. Second one, wasn't anything too special. He took a similar bus route to me, began at the same town, but I got off before he did, to who knows where he goes. We spoke a few times, mainly about the weather because of British people. I then saw in the local to where my college's paper that he ended up murdering a girl and her pet dog and cat. I got no creepy vibes from that guy. He always wore a suit, hair combed back with a bit too much gel sometimes, clean, proper, smelt nice. Nothing felt off about him. LL add a bit more that, in hindsight, bit creepy now I think more about him. He always carried a notebook and would jot down who the bus driver of the day was and what regulars came on the bus. I asked about me jokingly. And he sighed, yes, you barely miss college and never come on the weekends and our bank holidays, because there is no college then. Obviously he'd know this as my stop was before his, but he did ask why I got off in town on Wednesday a week before. I told him, oh I just wanted to walk to college that day. Yeah, in hindsight I should have told him that, especially if he went on to murder a person, TF. How many times I've brightened someone's day. How many girls were attracted to me and wanted me to ask them out. I want to know how many people died as an indirect result of my actions. I know at least one that should have died by my actions, of just driving down the road. Idiot van pulled out of a street on my right out of nowhere while I was cruising at 40-ish. In that split second I thought this is it, I am going to get in my first major crash. Before that second was over I decided to tell death, not today. My video game instincts kicked in and instead of locking up the brakes and perfectly T-boning them, I hit the brakes hard but steered right into them, hoping they wouldn't be there when I got there. It worked, because I knew they weren't going to stop in time either, and I just slid by the back of the van, but had to counter-correct back to the left to realign with the road. Still carrying too much speed, the 91 Honda Accord's rear end stepped out to the right, I caught it, and progressed on my way. The greatest driving evasion of my life so far. You're welcome you fucking idiot, you'd probably be dead with any other driver just locking up and plowing straight into your door as close as we were before I made the decision to evade. How many times was I near a buried treasure? The number of people who actually like me, as opposed to the number of people who just put up with me out of politeness, I assume. The anxiety is real. How many people actually notice, judge me during the school day? How many miles have I scrolled? I used to write smut for a living, straight up, no bullshit stroke books. I did okay at it, which means that, presumably, a lot of people have masturbated to my stuff. I'd like to know how far into my writing career I became indirectly responsible for more orgasms through my writing than I was directly responsible for in person, both my own, and other people's. How many times I was near my future husband without knowing. We both grew up in the same city, my parents know his best friend's parents. We must have passed each other on festivals or played at the same park or gone shopping at the same time at some points in our lives. How many times I've caused a person to fundamentally question their beliefs. Gallons of alcohol consumed. Dogs petted in a lifetime. How many tears I've shed over things that weren't worth my energy. How many people have wanted to approach me but decided against it. How many guys have wanted to ask me out? More interesting, how many women have wanted to ask me out but thought I was completely straight because I did, and still do, enjoy the. How many orgasms have been had inside me? Life pro tip from all the D's in the world. You can ask us out too. If the guy says no, he'll be writing that one for a week, and if he says yes, probably even long if you know what I mean. I'm a dude, and I'm completely straight, but damn, getting asked out by a chick is the best feeling ever. Married, so I turn them all down, but whenever some cougar or gay guy gives me their number I always hang it on the fridge and tell my wife. I have options. I get a confidence boost and my wife gets a laugh, so it's a win-win. Edit. Jesus sweet balls, thanks for the silver. Bonus story. There is a very flamboyantly gay man who works the drive-through window at the McDonald's nearest to my house. Guy compliments me every time I see him, so whenever I'm feeling down I just go get something from McDonald's. 100% straight, but I love that man. He has turned my day around on multiple occasions. Reason for asking, I just almost accidentally killed a spider by running the tap, and it made me wonder how many are lurking in the pipes that I don't get the chance to rescue. So how many animals I'll accidentally kill by the time I die? How many people think of me in passing? I have a sharp memory, and I still remember details and birthdays of people I graduated with over 10 years ago. Oh hey, today's is Becky's birthday, wonder how she's doing. Overall, I would say I wasn't well liked in school, considering I have no friends left from there, so the thought of how often I pop into people's heads is interesting. Oh, this is weird, Norbagle used to like this, or just things like that. How many liters of cum I've ejaculated. How many breads I've eaten in my life. Possibly well-known fact, a man kept a lawn mowing journal, telling each time he mowed and a few statistics like time spent, number of bags used, etc. several years of history, and it was used as evidence of global warming, I think, because the grass growing season got longer over time according to his journal. What percent gypsy I really am to shut my grandma up? How much of my horrible behavior and life choices is a product of my childhood and how much is just me? I want to know how many people remember me after they've left me behind. How many times I planned to talk to someone but ended up turning back without saying any word. Blind people of Reddit, what do you find sexually attractive? I'm not blind, but my wife is. She says she doesn't know. She says she finds me attractive. She just added, strong arms. I like feeling the muscles in your arms. She added that pre-vision loss she would have not paid attention to this. She also adds that she can't see me, but can sense when I am looking at her lovingly. I told her I was really scowling. I read this to her before posting. She approves. A deep sexy voice, soft skin, and long silky hair. Fabio. Hey, I can chime in with a Fabio story too. I was sitting in traffic and he pulled up next to me in a convertible Mercedes. The light had just turned red, and while I was checking traffic I realized who I was sitting next to. I had the doors off my Jeep, so I leaned across the passenger seat and yelled, "Oh my god, I have always been jealous of your hair." And we chatted about different conditioners until the light changed. Before he drove away he told me I had hair like a princess. Now, I'm a big 36-year-old dude, but I still fangirled all the way home. Edit, the hair. Long hair and a smooth voice. Saruman. I have been blind of a while now, and the sexiest thing ever is a good sense of humor. Using the powers of text-to-speech, a friend, and some blueberries, I am pleased to say that squishy tits and curvy body are very attractive. Edit, holy shit, I didn't expect this to blow up. Thank you for popping my gold and silver virginity. Edit 2, since many of you clearly don't understand humor, I am not actually blind, I merely saw a chance to be funny and took it. I once ate a grape Jolly Rancher while on 3 hits of good LSD. For about 30 seconds, I could see, hear, feel as well as smell and taste grape. It lasted until I was overwhelmed by the experience, put my sunglasses back on, and remarked to my friend, "Well, that was intense." He agreed, having just had a similar experience of the blue raspberry variety. A blind friend of mine, sadly now passed, was synesthetic. She could feel radio waves and atmospheric disturbances. She could feel when there was peculiar atmospheric activity going on, like aurora borealis, and when she thought the conditions existed, she was always right as far as I could tell. She ended up getting into amateur radio, where being able to do this turned into a useful ability instead of just an interesting one. She later learned Morse code, and when she listened to incoming code she could feel that too. She thought she was losing her mind. Quite the contrary. I do not need to see to know, the best of things that wait below, the finest parts, the fairest bits, are curvy bods and squishy tits. I do not need my sight to see, the most attractive thing to me, is buxom builds and boobs ahead. I don't need eyes. Just hands, he said. Some people have a really intoxicating scent. Not deodorant or perfume or whatever, but just their natural smell. Also, we can totally have body preferences, they're just based on touch. I'm 6 feet tall and I like how small my partner feels in my arms. I'm a bi chick who is blind. Things I find attractive include, talking to me like I'm an intelligent person and not yelling. You'd be surprised by how many people recognize that I'm blind and then talk to me like I'm mentally slow or deaf. B. If I need help I will ask. Please do not treat me like an injured animal in need of care. I promise I live a full independent life outside of our date. C. I may be blind but I still know when you or your place is dirty. Please do not use my blindness as an excuse for your laziness. D. Be descriptive in your conversations and about our environment so I can imagine and relate. E. Most importantly, be kind and not just kind to me. I hear how you treat others and it matters more than anything else on this list. Edit 1. Thank you for the gold, kind stranger. Edit 2. Y'all have a lot of questions. I, and others, have answered some of them already. It's almost midnight here and I have a new job to wake up for tomorrow. I will get back to you when I can. I had a close blind friend for many years. Sadly, she passed. I think the reason she and I became good friends is that I was curious about her blindness and didn't treat it as a deficiency so much as a difference, and that's exactly what it was. Yes, it sucked that she was blind and it was occasionally very inconvenient, but it didn't prevent me from interacting with her in a meaningful way. We were at a botanical garden once and I was showing her different plants there that I thought would feel interesting. She had never felt a hosta before. She was intrigued. And it was fun for me. And against my comfort, she had me help her explore a cactus greenhouse. In retrospect, I think that was a pretty good sign that she trusted me. I had to be pretty clear with her as to how careful she needed to be. She quite enjoyed that experience, too. And I still miss her. But that's how life goes. My mom is legally blind, and her dad, his mom, retinitis pigmentosa, and it's amazing how much technology has opened up her world. One eye is light, darks only, the other has tunnel vision, less than 5%, with cataract. She uses SmartInvert in iOS to flip to dark background, light text, but it still shows images appropriately, so she can make out pictures. And most recently we got her an Apple Pencil, and using SmartInvert in GoodNotes, she can write in white on black background and actually see her writing again. She takes pictures at events and of family, as you mentioned, so she can take her time and study them later. Siri, especially on Apple Watch, is super helpful. Her blindness has progressed over the years, and will continue to do so, but it amazes me how much she has learned to adapt. Might be too late, but why not? Legally blind, vision deteriorating throughout my life, got the legal designation in my early 20s. Dating's a bit of a mixed bag for me, but there are a few things that help me appreciate someone intimately. They don't spend the majority of the first date as a performance audit of how my vision might interfere with dating. It puts me on the defensive since I get half of those questions rephrased during job interviews and medical appointments. We met via eharmony.com, not healthcare.gov. If they communicate about things openly but know what information isn't important at the moment. If someone goes radio silent in bed, I have no idea if I'm boring them, if they're unconscious, if they're having doubts about consent, or if I'm missing their favorite spot, and doubt is a hell of a mood killer. However, if they're saying things like, a little lower, or, don't you dare stop, you better believe they have my undivided attention. Similarly, if time permits, foreplay is often an overlooked form of intimacy. Not only is it arousing, but I'm also getting the lay of the land in the same way I'd use a cane if walking down the street. So yeah, quickies don't always work out if I'm trying to learn the layout of someone who wants to be gone in 10 minutes. Don't rush it. Not gonna lie, breasts. I might not be able to notice them from afar, but if I'm with someone who's comfortable enough around me, they're my favorite kind of braille. I'm open to chat for a while, if there are other questions. Otherwise, I hope this helps. Edit, my most upvoted comment is now about my sex life. FML, no, seriously, please do. I'm very lonely. I'll settle for a cuddle, at this rate. And now my first gold. Thanks, newly informed stranger. As well as platinum. One moment while I curl up in the corner and gibber quietly. Always wanted to ask this, but it's a weird question, and constantly makes my vision deteriorating. X laugh his ass off, but he won't give me an answer. Can the bumps around a woman's nipples say something in braille? I'm assuming by how hard he laughs it's either a hard no or a yes. Your boob says pickle. A deep voice that hints at being able to sing, big hands, cologne, ability to give good, strong hugs, soft hair, muscular but not overly so body, easy laughter, the way he touches me putting his hand on the small of my back in public, things like that. Reminds me of a part from Becker. Jake made a sculpture based on how he perceived a woman during sex. He sculpted the arch in her back and her curves. It was kinda wholesome to hear him talk about it. The only memory I have of Becker is being 8 and scrolling through TV at like 12 p.m. because I was homesick from school. An episode of a show comes on with a guy the first recognized from Cheers. Dad loved that show, so I decided to watch it. Starts off simple enough with him meeting a cute girl and flirting with her, but by the end of the episode he found out it's his best friend from high school who had a sex change. I had no idea sex changes were a thing back then, so it was pretty eye-opening. Delicious flat chest needs no eyesight to be enjoyed. My buddy is blind from birth, 27, and a few months ago I let him know about the audio descriptive section on Pornhub. He was completely unaware that it existed. First thing he said the next time I see him was, "Bloody hell, that stuff is all a bit filthy," changed his life. You just changed my life too. I now have audiobooks for my long drives. Edit, thank you to the kind soul who gave me gold. Edit 2, I'm not blind to everyone who is concerned about me driving. Edit 3, thanks for the platinum. Favorite features are being tall with a big ass and thick thighs. Bad breath is a deal breaker given my height and sense of smell, and no crustaceans should be on the body at all. Super obsessive over smooth skin after I was traumatized with getting with this truck stop chick who had the worst case of eczema I have ever felt in my entire life. So in a sense I would say smells and texture come first and then physical preferences come second. In a nutshell, I had retinal cancer when I was a baby, but they stopped that with radiation. Turns out that those of us who received radiation like that in the 80s are now susceptible to long-term side effects for vision. The center of my vision got fuzzy from a macular edema, and while I was undergoing treatment for that, things progressively got worse and my retina detached. The surgery for that to get fixed didn't take, and I had a succession of 4 more surgeries a year later to try to solve it, each with a complication. While I was recovering a few months after the last surgery, my retinal artery threw a clot and killed off all my vision in about 30 minutes. Everything went dark, like when you black out after standing up too fast, but it eventually came back the next day. My vision looked like I was staring through dark, shattered glass and was unusable. A few days later, it all just went away as the rest of my retina died. Edit, nutshell typo. What's the worst thing someone tried to correct you about something you're specialized at? I studied history at uni and worked for a while as a tour guide in Prague, Czech Republic. I had a customer once on a walking tour of the city go really snarky with me because I called the river running through the city the Vltava. He declared to the whole tour that that wasn't its name. I asked him if he'd heard it referred to as the Moldau, as that was the German name for the river during the Habsburg era when German was the official language, but he said no, and was I stupid? The river was called the Danube. I pointed out to him that the Danube doesn't run through Prague, and asked if maybe he was thinking of Brno? No, he had definitely read in a guidebook that it was the Danube, and why the hell was he paying money for this tour if the guide didn't even know what the river was called? At which point another tourist in the group showed him her guidebook where it clearly said Vltava. Then another showed him a map. And another showed him another guidebook, and so on, until the whole group had basically showed him what a twazzer he was being. He didn't apologize, of course, but at least he shut up for the rest of the tour. I'm not really specialized, but a Redditor tried correcting me about the geography of my country, Norway. Claiming that it was very much flat like all the other Nordic countries, and he refused to believe me when I told him that it's the opposite and it's filled with mountains. I'm majoring in archaeology. I had a guy start talking to me about dinosaurs. I correct him and say it's a fairly common misconception, but paleontology and archaeology are 2 different fields and I'm studying humans, not dinosaurs. He doubles down and insists I need to know about dinosaurs because what do you do if you're digging up ruins and find a dinosaur fossil? Call a paleontologist? He smugly tells me I'll be useless in the field if I don't know about dinosaurs and I better start registering for paleontology courses and leaves. I still don't know about dinosaurs. I had to leave welding for this reason. I'm a welder on nuclear submarines with over 14 different X-ray welding qualifications at this company alone. I would constantly get into arguments with people who are new and have no real-world experience with welding. The amount of wrong information being thrown out left and right over there is insane. There are plenty of very knowledgeable folks there, but they are overshadowed by the ignorant. You wouldn't believe the number of times people tried to tell me that people only become diabetic if they eat too much sugar and insist they are right. I'm a type 1 diabetic, diagnosed at 14 months. Was I drinking soda from my bottles and using ring pops as pacifiers, then? So, Canadian lawyer here. I used to do primarily firearms law. I taught a course in firearms law at university, I've been consulted on it by lawyers, I've had judges tell other lawyers to phone me with firearms law questions. I had a law student telling me that I was oh so wrong about firearms law on a particular topic. Eventually they went and cited a particular case, which I politely advised them they were wrong about. They keep going on, talking about how just because I'm a lawyer and they're a student doesn't mean they're wrong. Meanwhile I'm just holding my tongue. Eventually someone else chimed in to be like, don't you know who that is? And the case you cited was a case he personally argued and won on. Satisfying AF. Not me, but yesterday I was at a physics lecture given by Donna Strickland, who won the Nobel Prize in Physics last year for her work in lasers. During the questions afterward some kid, either undergrad or young grad, I didn't know him, was all I have a comment more than a question, and proceeded to explain some laser technique to her and that she should use it. Her response was a, yes, we are well familiar with X in my lab and use it. I was just kind of amazed at the moxie of a kid who tried to tell a Nobel laureate how to do her research in a room packed with hundreds of people. Edit, in the spirit of the thread, I do enjoy all the people explaining to me how academia works or stuff about women in science, seeing as I am a woman submitting her PhD within a month. Am a climber, people tell me to wear gloves all of the time. There is a form of climbing where gloves would be somewhat acceptable, although even then a bit questionable, but in free climbing, bouldering you cannot wear gloves because your fingers actually allow you to grip onto smaller pieces of rock. I'm a food scientist, so this happens basically all the goddamn time. One person insisting that MSG gives her terrible migraines. She was eating pizza at that exact time. Someone insisting that you should drink apple cider vinegar to alkalize your body to prevent diseases. I point out that's an acid. He insists it's not. Apple cider vinegar. Another person telling me how